Everything at my best friend's baby shower looked flawless smiles, champagne, perfect photos until my husband suddenly leaned close and whispered, "We need to leave. Right now." I laughed at first. Then I saw his face. He refused to explain until we were locked inside the car. Only then did he turn to me and ask, "You really didn't notice what was happening in that house, did you?" What he revealed next shattered a 20-year friendship and changed how I see trust forever. Welcome and thank you for staying with me. Comment your location so I know you're here and tell me honestly, have you ever trusted someone for years, only to realize you never really knew them at all, because that's where this story truly begins. Before we go on, a quick disclaimer: parts of this story include fictional elements added to enhance the message and storytelling. Any similarities to real people or settings are coincidental, but the lesson is absolutely real.
My name is Kesha, and at 32 years old, I make a living finding money that people try to hide. As a forensic accountant, I can track a hidden offshore account through 3 shell companies before I finish my morning coffee. But for all my professional sharpness, I was completely blind to the robbery happening right under my own nose. It is funny how we can spot a missing decimal point on a balance sheet, but miss the red flags waving in the hands of the people we love. The day of the incident was supposed to be a triumph. It was the baby shower for Tanisha, my best friend since kindergarten. She calls herself a lifestyle influencer, but her real talent is spending other people's money. This party was taking place at her sprawling mansion in Buckhead, Atlanta, a house that I knew for a fact was leveraged to the hilt because I had helped her husband Andre restructure his debt just last year. The theme of the shower was a royal arrival, and Tanisha had insisted on nothing but the best. When she cried to me 3 weeks ago that Andre was having cash flow issues and she might have to cancel the party, I did what I always do. I stepped in. I wrote a check for $25,000 to cover the catering, the decor, and the event planner. I told myself it was a gift for the baby. I told myself that Tanisha deserved this moment of happiness after her struggles. I did not tell myself that I was being a doormat, because that is a truth I was not ready to face yet. I arrived at the mansion 2 hours early, not as a guest of honor, but as unpaid labor. The event planner was short-staffed, so there I was, the woman who paid for the entire event, hauling crates of champagne and adjusting floral arrangements that cost more than my first car. I was sweating through my silk dress by the time the first guests arrived. That was when Becky walked in. Becky is my sister-in-law, a woman who married my brother Dante 3 years ago and has been looking down her nose at us ever since. She is 30 years old with a smile that does not reach her eyes and a passive-aggressive streak a mile wide. She strolled into the party wearing a white lace dress that looked suspiciously bridal, completely ignoring the etiquette that you do not wear white to someone else's event. She spotted me across the room near the dessert table where I was frantically trying to fix a leaning tower of macarons. She glided over a glass of red wine already in her hand. "Oh, Kesha," she said loud enough for the nearby waiters to hear. "You look so tired. That dress is interesting. It looks very sturdy, like something you would wear to do yard work. It is very brave of you to wear that here." My dress was a limited edition Zimmerman piece that cost $800, but on Becky's tongue it sounded like a burlap sack. I forced a smile and straightened my spine. "It is silk." "Becky," I said, keeping my voice even, "and I am tired because I have been setting up this party since 8 this morning. Where were you?" "Oh, I was at the spa," she said, taking a sip of wine. "Dante said you had everything under control. You are so good at the heavy lifting, Kesha. It is really your natural state, isn't it? Some of us are meant to be served, and some are meant to serve." Before I could respond, she took a step forward and pretended to stumble. The glass of red wine tipped in her hand and a dark crimson splash hit the front of my cream-colored silk dress. It soaked in, instantly spreading like a fresh wound across my chest. "Oops," she said, without a shred of regret in her voice. "Well, at least now you have an excuse to go change into something more appropriate. Actually, the red looks better on you. It matches your complexion." I stood there frozen. The cold wine seeped through to my skin, but the heat of my anger was keeping me warm. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her to get out. But I looked around at the guests starting to filter in the business partners of Tanisha's husband, the socialites of Atlanta, and I swallowed my rage. I would not be the angry black woman who caused a scene. I would not give Becky that satisfaction. I grabbed a napkin and dabbed at the stain while Becky walked away laughing to greet another guest. I retreated to the kitchen to try and salvage the dress with club soda. That was where my brother Dante found me. Dante is 34 years old, 2 years older than me, but he has the maturity of a teenager. He has not held a steady job in 5 years, but he drives a leased BMW and wears suits he cannot afford. He cornered me near the industrial fridge, his eyes darting around nervously. "Kesha, I need a favor," he said, his voice low. I scrubbed at the wine stain on my dress, not looking at him. "I am a little busy, Dante. Your wife just ruined my $800 dress." "Yeah, she said you were clumsy," Dante said, dismissing my complaint with a wave of his hand. "Look, I need you to cash app me $2,000. Right now." I stopped scrubbing and looked at him. "Are you insane? I just paid $25,000 for this party, Dante. I just paid your rent last month. Why do you need $2,000 right now?" "It is for a gift," he hissed, leaning closer. "Becky wants to give Tanisha this designer diaper bag, but my card got declined. It is a banking error, obviously, but I need to buy it now so we do not look bad." "Come on, Kesha. You have plenty of money. Don't be stingy. It is for the baby. It is always for the baby, or for the family, or for an emergency. The excuse changes, but the demand is always the same." "No, Dante," I said. "I am not giving you $2,000 to buy a gift you cannot afford to impress people you do not like. Tell Becky to buy a card." He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my flesh. "Don't embarrass me, Kesha. All these high rollers are here. If we show up empty-handed, we look like trash. Just transfer the money. You make more in a week than I make in a year." "You owe me." "I owe you?" I asked, incredulous. "For what?" "For being the one who stayed," he said, playing his favorite victim card. "You went off to get your fancy degrees and become a big-shot accountant. I stayed here and took care of Mom. I held the family together. The least you can do is share the wealth." It was a lie. He stayed because he flunked out of college and Mom enabled his laziness. But arguing with Dante was like talking to a wall. I was exhausted. I was stained with wine. I just wanted to get through the next 3 hours without a family brawl. "Fine," I snapped, pulling out my phone. 2,000. "But this is the last time, Dante. I mean it." He watched over my shoulder as I sent the transfer, his face relaxing into a smug grin as soon as the confirmation popped up. "Thanks, sis," he said, patting my cheek condescendingly. "You are a lifesaver. Try to clean up that dress, though. You look like a mess." He walked out, leaving me alone in the kitchen with my shrinking bank account and my ruined dress. I took a deep breath, fixed my makeup, and walked back out into the party. The main event was starting. Tanisha was seated on a massive velvet throne that I had rented for $500. She looked beautiful, I had to admit. She was glowing, her hands resting on her large baby bump draped in gold chiffon. Andre stood behind her, looking proud and nervous. I found my husband Jamal near the back of the room. Jamal is a cybersecurity consultant, a man of few words who notices everything. He looked at my stained dress and his jaw tightened. "Becky?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "And Dante just shook me down for $2,000. Jamal's eyes darkened. "We should leave, Kesha. These people do not respect you. They are eating your food and drinking your champagne and treating you like the help." "Just a little longer," I whispered, squeezing his hand. "Tanisha is about to open the gifts. I want to see her reaction to the stroller." I had spent weeks researching the perfect gift. I bought a Silver Cross Balmoral pram, the kind the British royals use. It cost $1,800. It was classic, elegant, and sturdy. I knew Tanisha wanted the best for her twins, and this was the best money could buy.
Tanisha opened gift after gift, squealing with delight at designer onesies and silver rattles. Finally, she got to the massive box with my card on it. "Oh, this one is from Kesha," she announced to the room. "My bestie. Let us see what she got." She tore open the paper, and Dante helped her pull the pram out of the box. It gleamed under the chandelier's navy blue with chrome details. It was magnificent. The room went quiet for a moment, admiring the gift. Then Tanisha's face twisted. "It is blue," she said, her voice flat. "It is navy," I said, stepping forward slightly. "It is a classic color, Tanisha. It works for boys or girls." Tanisha wrinkled her nose, looking at the pram like it was a used tissue. "But I wanted the beige one, Kesha. The beige one matches my nursery aesthetic. This looks old-fashioned. It looks like something a nanny would push." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter went through the room, led by Becky, who was standing in the front row. "Well, I guess it is the thought that counts." Tanisha sighed loud enough for everyone to hear. "Do you have the receipt? I think I will just return it and take the cash. I could use the money for a spa weekend to recover from the stress of this party." My face burned. 50 people were staring at me, some with pity, some with amusement. I had spent $1,800 on a gift, only to be told it was wrong, ugly, and would be turned into cash for a spa day. I opened my mouth to say something to defend myself, but before I could speak, I felt a hand on my arm. It was Jamal. I had not noticed him leave my side, but he had apparently gone to use the restroom inside the house while the gifts were being opened. Now he was back and he looked different. Usually, Jamal is the calmest person I know. In his line of work, he deals with corporate hackers and digital extortionists without blinking. But right now, his face was ashen. His eyes were wide and focused with a terrifying intensity. His grip on my arm was painful. "We are leaving," he said. His voice was a low growl that vibrated in his chest. What I whispered, confused. "Jamal, we cannot leave yet. I have to pay the caterers at the end of the night, and Tanisha hasn't even cut the cake." "We are leaving now," Jamal repeated louder this time. He did not look at Tanisha. He did not look at the guests. He was looking at me with an urgency that scared me. "Jamal, what is wrong? Is it your mom? Is it work?" He pulled me toward the door, not gently. He was physically dragging me away from the party I had paid for. "Don't ask questions, Kesha," he hissed in my ear. "Just walk. If you stay in this house for one more minute, I am going to kill them. I am going to kill them all." The violence in his voice was so unlike him that I stopped resisting. I let him lead me out the front door, past the valet stand, and down the long driveway to where our car was parked. Behind us, I heard Tanisha's voice, shrill and demanding, echoing from the open patio doors. "Kesha, where are you going? You cannot leave. Who is going to sign the check for the waitstaff? Kesha, get back here." Jamal did not slow down. He unlocked the car, shoved me into the passenger seat, and got in behind the wheel. His hands were shaking as he fumbled with the keys. "Jamal, talk to me." I pleaded, my heart racing. "What happened in there? What did you see?" Jamal kept driving. He drove with a focus I had never seen before, his knuckles white against the leather steering wheel of our SUV. We were only 2 blocks away from Tanisha's estate, parked under the heavy shade of an old oak tree on a side street, but it felt like we had crossed into a different dimension. The silence in the car was suffocating, broken only by the hum of the air conditioning and the frantic thudding of my own heart. My mind was still back at the party, spinning through a checklist of disasters. We had just walked out. We had just walked out of the event of the season without saying goodbye. The social fallout would be catastrophic. But worse than the gossip was the money. "Jamal," I said, my voice rising in panic, "we have to go back. You do not understand. I have the credit card on file for the catering. The balance is $8,000. If I am not there to sign off on the final invoice, they are going to charge the penalty fee. That is another $1,500. Jamal did not answer. He just stared straight ahead through the windshield, his jaw set in a hard line. "And the cake," I continued, the words tumbling out of me faster and faster. "The baker needs the final payment upon delivery. Tanisha does not have the cash. If the cake does not get cut, she is going to have a meltdown.
She has been talking about this gender reveal cake for months. Jamal turned the car around. We can fix whatever is wrong, but we cannot just leave. He finally turned to look at me. His eyes were not angry anymore. They were filled with a profound, aching pity that scared me more than his rage. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He unlocked it, tapped the screen a few times, and then held it out to me. "Watch this," he said. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. I looked at the phone. It was the video file he had recorded just minutes ago. My hands were shaking so bad I had to grip the phone with both hands to keep it steady. I pressed play. The angle was low and slightly obscured, filmed through the crack of the master bedroom door. I recognized the silk wallpaper of Tanisha's room. I recognized the expensive Egyptian cotton duvet cover I had bought her as a housewarming gift. Tanisha was standing by the side of the bed. Becky was perched on the edge of the mattress holding a glass of wine in one hand and a bottle of Grey Goose vodka in the other. But it was what Tanisha was doing that made my brain short-circuit. On the small screen, my pregnant best friend, the woman whose swollen ankles I had massaged, the woman whose morning sickness I had cleaned up, reached under her oversized chiffon dress. There was a sharp tearing sound, like Velcro ripping, and then Tanisha took off her stomach. I gasped the air, leaving my lungs in a painful rush. I watched in frozen horror as she pulled a massive flesh-colored silicone prosthetic away from her body. It was heavy. I could see the weight of it as she swung it around and tossed it onto the bed like a throw pillow. Underneath the prosthetic, her stomach was flat, perfectly, impossibly flat. She was wearing Spanx and a tank top, and there was absolutely no baby bump. There was no baby. "Oh God, that feels better," Tanisha groaned on the video, stretching her arms over her head and twisting her torso. "It is so hot in that thing. I am sweating like a pig. Pass me the vodka." Becky laughed, a harsh, cackling sound that grated on my nerves. She handed the bottle to Tanisha, who took a long, deep swig straight from the neck. "You are a genius, Tanisha," Becky said, swirling her wine. "Look at them out there. Andre is crying over a pair of baby shoes, and Kesha is running around like a headless chicken paying for everything." I felt the bile rise in my throat. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed by the image of my brother's wife and my best friend laughing in that bedroom. "That idiot Kesha just wired Dante $2,000. Tanisha said, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. She checked her phone and smirked. It cleared. "That is our spa money for tomorrow. We are getting the platinum package, Becky. Hot stones, facials, the works." Becky grinned, revealing teeth that looked predatory in the dim light. "She is so desperate to be part of the family," Becky said. "It is pathetic. She thinks if she buys enough gifts, we will actually like her." Dante played her perfectly. He told her I needed a gift to save face, and she opened her wallet before he even finished the sentence. Tanisha sat down on the bed next to the fake belly, patting it affectionately. "And Andre," Tanisha said, shaking her head mockingly. "That man is a gold mine, but he is dumb as a rock. He thinks he is getting twins." Twins? Can you believe he bought it? Once I get him to sign the post-nuptial agreement securing assets for the children, I am set for life. Becky leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that the microphone still picked up clearly. "And what about the end game? How are we getting out of this?" Tanisha shrugged. "I will have a miscarriage next week, maybe after the spa day. I will stage a fall down the stairs or something dramatic. It will be tragic. I will blame it on stress caused by Kesha. I will say she upset me at the party. Andre will hate her. He will cut her off. I will keep the assets, and Kesha will probably pay for the funeral too out of guilt. She is a bottomless ATM, that one. She loves to pay for her own misery." Becky clinked her wineglass against the vodka bottle. To the twins she cheered, the invisible heirs to the empire. And to Kesha, the dumbest smart person we know. The video ended. The screen went black. I sat there in the passenger seat of the SUV, staring at my reflection in the dark glass of the phone. I felt cold. Freezing cold, despite the Atlanta heat. Kesha. Jamal's voice came from far away. I couldn't answer him. My stomach lurched violently. I fumbled for the door handle, threw the door open, and leaned out just in time. I dry heaved onto the pavement, my body trying to expel the toxicity of what I had just seen. There was nothing in my stomach but bile and betrayal. Jamal's hand was on my back, rubbing gentle circles, but I could barely feel it. My mind was reeling, rewinding through the last 6 months of my life. I remembered the night Tanisha called me at 3 in the morning, screaming in pain. She said she was having contractions. She said she was scared she was losing the babies. I had rushed over in my pajamas. I had driven her to the hospital, but she wouldn't let me come back with her. She said the doctor only allowed family, meaning Andre. I sat in that waiting room for 5 hours, terrified. When she came out, she looked frail and exhausted. She told me the doctor said it was a high-risk complication, and she needed a specific medication that insurance wouldn't cover immediately. She needed $5,000 cash to start the treatment right then. I didn't blink. I transferred the money. I hugged her. I thanked God she was okay. It was a lie. It was all a lie. She probably walked into the ER, complained of a headache, and walked out with my $5,000 in her pocket. I remembered the shopping trips, the nursery furniture, the organic cotton onesies, the thousands of dollars I had poured into this pregnancy because I wanted to be the supportive auntie. I remembered how Becky would look at me with that sneer, making comments about how I was trying too hard because I couldn't have kids of my own. They knew. They knew about my miscarriage 2 years ago. They knew how broken I was when I lost my own baby. And they used that. They weaponized my trauma to pick my pockets. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand and sat back up. I felt hollowed out. The sadness I expected to feel wasn't there. The grief for the friendship wasn't there. It had been incinerated by the heat of the revelation. She is not pregnant, I whispered, my voice raspy. No, Jamal said softly. And Becky knows, and Dante knows. They all know, Jamal said. They are all in on it, Kesha. They have been playing you. They have been playing Andre. It is a long con. I looked at the house down the street. I could see the valet parking cars. I could see the balloons bobbing in the breeze. Inside that house, 50 people were celebrating a lie. Andre was in there handing out cigars, thinking he was about to be a father. He was just as much a victim as I was, maybe more. I pulled myself back into the car and closed the door. The air conditioning hit my face, cooling the sweat on my forehead. I need a minute, I said. I just need a minute to think. Take your time, Jamal said. We are not going anywhere until you are ready. I closed my eyes. I tried to summon the forensic accountant in me. I tried to push aside the hurt friend and find the cold, hard auditor. I tracked the money in my head. The catering deposit, the florist, the venue for the gender reveal next month, the loans to Dante, the credit card bills Becky racked up on the authorized user card I gave her for emergencies. It wasn't just a few $1,000s. Over the last 6 months, between the gifts, the medical emergencies, the loans, and the party costs, they had siphoned close to $50,000 out of me. And they were planning to take more. They were planning to take Andre for millions. My phone buzzed in my lap. The screen lit up, illuminating the dark car interior. The name on the screen was Tanisha. I stared at it. The picture was a selfie of us from college, smiling, our arms around each other. It looked like a photo of strangers now. Answer it, Jamal said. Put it on speaker. I hesitated. My hands were still trembling. But then I remembered the video. I remembered her laughing as she talked about staging a miscarriage and blaming it on me. I remembered her calling me a bottomless ATM. I swiped right and pressed the speaker button. Hey girl, Tanisha's voice filled the car. It was high, bubbly, and dripping with fake sweetness. Where did you go? The cake cutting is in 10 minutes, and everyone is asking for Auntie Kesha. I took a breath. I forced my voice to be steady. I forced myself to sound like the clueless, desperate to please friend she thought I was.
I am so sorry, Tanisha, I said. Jamal wasn't feeling well. His stomach. We had to run to the pharmacy. Oh no, she cried, sounding genuinely distressed, which I now recognized as an Oscar-worthy performance. Is he okay? We really need you back here. The florist just pulled me aside. Apparently there is an outstanding balance for the orchid wall. It is $1,200. They said they are going to start taking it down if they don't get payment in the next 20 minutes. Can you believe that? So rude. Of course. The florist. Another emergency that only my credit card could solve. 1,200, I asked. Yeah, Tanisha said. I know it is a lot, but the photos are going to be stunning. You know, I cannot deal with this stress right now, Kesha. The doctor said I have to keep my blood pressure down for the twins. If I get upset, it could trigger contractions again. She was doing it. She was using the fake babies as a gun to my head. Don't worry, Tanisha, I said. My voice sounded robotic to my own ears, but she didn't seem to notice. I will handle it. Do not stress. Think of the twins. You are the best, she squealed. Seriously, I do not know what I would do without you. Hurry back, okay? Becky is dying to make a toast and she wants you there. Love you. Love you too, I said. The line went dead. I lowered the phone. The silence in the car was heavy, but it felt different now. It wasn't the silence of confusion. It was the silence of focus. She wants $1,200 for flowers, I said to Jamal. Jamal looked at me. His eyes were dark pools of anger, but he was waiting for my lead. What do you want to do? I looked down at my dress. The wine stain was drying, turning a dark, ugly purple. It looked like blood. They think I am stupid, I said softly. They think I am weak. They think because I love hard, I am blind. I looked up at Jamal. The tears were gone. My eyes were dry. Take me home, I said. Home? Jamal asked, surprised. You want to go home? No, I said. I want to go to my home office. I need my laptop. I need my multiple monitors. I need access to my server. Jamal smiled. It was a small, sharp smile, the smile of a man who is ready for war. You are going to audit them, aren't you? I am not just going to audit them, Jamal, I said, clutching my phone like a weapon. I am going to vivisect them. Tanisha wants a gender reveal. Fine. I am going to give her a reveal she will never forget. But first, I need to make a call. Who, Andre? I said. Jamal started the engine. The engine roared to life, a low growl that matched the feeling in my chest. Let's go, he said. As we pulled away from the curb, I looked back one last time at the mansion on the hill. I could hear the faint sound of music and laughter. They were partying on my dime. They were celebrating their con. Enjoy the cake, Tanisha, I whispered. Because it is the last thing you are ever going to taste that I paid for. My house was usually my sanctuary. It was a sleek, modern space in Midtown that Jamal and I had curated with the same precision we applied to our careers. But tonight, the silence of the hallway felt heavy, like the calm before a hurricane. We had driven home in a tense quiet, the kind that vibrates with unsaid words and strategizing. I walked into the kitchen and placed my phone on the marble island. It was vibrating so hard against the stone it made a buzzing sound that grated on my raw nerves. Do not look at it, Jamal said softly, walking over to the fridge to get water. He looked tired. The rage from the car had settled into a cold, hard resolve, but I could see the lines of tension around his eyes. I have to look, I said, my voice sounding hollow in the large room. I need to know what the narrative is. In my line of work, you cannot fight a fraud if you do not know the story the embezzler is telling. I picked up the phone. The screen was lit up with notifications. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I had been tagged in dozens of posts in the last 20 minutes. I opened Facebook first. The algorithm knew exactly what to show me. At the top of my feed was a live video. The red badge in the corner said live, and the viewer count was climbing by the hundreds. It was Tanisha. She was sitting in the same velvet throne chair I had rented for her.
The party was still going on in the background, but the music had been turned down to a somber, low volume. She was holding a tissue to her eyes, dabbing at tears that I knew for a fact were not real. "Hey guys," she sniffled, looking directly into the camera lens with wide, tragic eyes. "I know everyone is asking why the mood changed so suddenly. I did not want to address it, but I feel like I owe it to my real supporters, to be honest." I gripped the edge of the counter. My real supporters. My best friend Kesha left the party early. Tanisha continued, her voice breaking perfectly on cue. "It was really hard. You guys know she has struggled with fertility issues. We all know how much she wanted a baby, and it just did not happen for her." My breath hitched. She was going there. She was using my miscarriage. She was using the darkest, most painful moment of my life as a shield for her scam. I think seeing me so happy today with the twins, it was just too much for her. Tanisha sighed, looking down at her fake silicone belly. "She made a scene, guys. She was yelling at the staff. She was being really aggressive with my sister-in-law, Becky. I tried to calm her down, but she just stormed out. She said she could not stand to look at me. She said I did not deserve this happiness." The comments were rolling in fast on the side of the screen. "That is so toxic, cut her off, sis. Jealousy is a disease, get well soon. You do not need that negative energy around the babies. Poor Tanisha, you look so stressed." "She ruined my day." Tanisha whispered, a single tear tracking through her perfect foundation. "And the worst part is, she canceled the payment for the catering on her way out. She left me with a $10,000 bill just to be spiteful. I do not know how we are going to pay it. Andre is so stressed." It was a masterclass in manipulation. She had taken the truth, twisted it into a knot, and tied it around my neck. She wasn't just playing the victim, she was fundraising. She was setting the stage to ask for money to cover the bills I had supposedly abandoned. I threw the phone onto the counter. It slid across the marble and hit the fruit bowl. "She is saying I left because I am jealous," I whispered. "She is saying I am bitter because my baby died." Jamal slammed his water glass down hard enough to splash liquid onto the counter. "She is a sociopath," he said. "Do not watch it, Kesha. It is bait." Before I could respond, the phone started ringing. The caller ID flashed a picture of my mother holding her prize-winning orchids. I stared at it. My mother never called this late. She was usually in bed by 9. "Answer it," Jamal said. "Put it on speaker. We need to hear what they are saying." I tapped the green button. "Hello, Mom, Kesha Marie. I have never been so mortified in my entire life." My mother's voice was a shrill weapon. It pierced through the speaker, loud and distorted. There was no hello. No question about how I was. Just immediate judgment. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I asked, my hand trembling. "Do not play dumb with me," she snapped. "Becky just called me from the bathroom. She is in tears, Kesha." "Tears. She told me what you did." "What I did?" I repeated, a hysterical laugh bubbling up in my throat. "And what exactly did Becky say I did?" "She said you were drunk," my mother accused. "She said you showed up to that elegant party in a work dress, looking like a slob, and started drinking wine immediately. She said she tried to help you fix your makeup, because you looked disheveled, and you threw a glass of red wine on her. On her white dress, Kesha." I closed my eyes. Of course. The wine spill. Becky had flipped the script. "Mom." "That is a lie," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Becky spilled wine on me. She insulted me. She made fun of my dress." "Oh, stop it," my mother interrupted. "Always the victim, aren't you? Becky is a sweet girl. She has tried so hard to be a part of this family, and you have been cold to her since day one because you think you are better than everyone. You think because you have a degree and a big house you can look down on your brother's wife." "I do not look down on her, Mom. I look right through her because she is a grifter," I said, my voice rising. "Don't you use that word," my mother shouted. "Dante is frantic. He said you promised to help pay for the rest of the party, and then you ran off and left them with the bill. Do you know how that makes us look? We are supposed to be people of our word." People of our word, I asked. Mom, Dante extorted $2,000 from me in the kitchen before the party even started. He said it was for a gift. And you begrudged your own brother a little help. My mother scoffed. You have so much, Kesha. God has blessed you financially, even if he hasn't blessed you in other ways. But you are greedy. You are hoarding your money while your family struggles, even if he hasn't blessed you in other ways. The knife twisted. She meant the baby. She meant my empty womb. Tanisha was using it for sympathy. My mother was using it as a judgment. You need to fix this, Kesha, my mother demanded. You need to get back in your car right now. You drive back to that party. You apologize to Tanisha. You apologize to Becky. And you pay that catering bill. If you don't, do not bother coming to Sunday dinner. I will not have a daughter who shames this family. I looked at Jamal. He was standing perfectly still, his eyes focused on the phone like he was memorizing the waveform of her voice. I am not going back, Mom, I said quietly. And I am not paying another cent. Then you are on your own, my mother said. Cold. Final. And don't expect Dante to forgive you easily. He is furious. The line went dead. I sank onto a bar stool, my legs suddenly unable to hold my weight. It was a coordinated attack. Tanisha on social media, Becky working the phones to the family. They were isolating me. They were cutting off my support systems one by one so I would feel alone and desperate enough to pay up. My phone dinged with a text message. It was Dante. I see you are ignoring my calls. Big mistake, sis. The event planner is threatening to call the police if the balance isn't paid. I told them to call your job. I told them you committed fraud. If you don't wire the $8,000 in the next 10 minutes, I am going to go on LinkedIn and tag every partner at your firm. I will tell them you abandoned debts. I will ruin your reputation, Kesha. Pay the bill. He knew my weak spot. My career was everything to me. In my world, reputation was currency. An accusation of fraud, even a false one, could trigger an internal investigation. It could get me suspended. I picked up the phone, my thumbs hovering over the screen. I opened my video gallery. My finger hovered over the video of Tanisha taking off her belly. I am going to post it, I said, my voice shaking with adrenaline. I am going to post it right now. I will tag Dante. I will tag Mom. I will tag Tanisha's sponsors. I will burn it all down. I moved to tap the share button, but Jamal's hand shot out and covered mine. His grip was firm, warm, and grounding. No, he said. I looked up at him, furious. Why not, Jamal? Look at what they are doing. They are destroying me. They are lying about me to the whole world. I have the truth right here in my hand. Let me drop the bomb. Not yet, Jamal said gently, prying the phone from my fingers. He set it down on the counter face down. If you post that video now, Tanisha will spin it. He explained, his voice calm and logical. The anchor in my storm. She will say it was a joke. She will say they were just relieving pressure from the belt. Or worse, she will say, it is a deepfake. You know how easy that is to claim these days. And even if people believe it, what happens? She gets embarrassed. Maybe she loses some followers. She loses everything, I argued. Does she? Jamal asked. Or does she just play the victim harder? Does she say you invaded her privacy? Does she sue you for filming her in her bedroom without consent? And what about Andre? What about him, I asked. He is her husband. He is part of it. No, Jamal shook his head. Watch the video again, Kesha. Watch how they talk about him. They call him a mark. They are laughing at him. He doesn't know. If he sees this on Facebook first, he might not believe it. Or he might warn her. He might give her a chance to hide the assets she is trying to steal. Jamal walked around the island and stood in front of me, taking both my hands in his. You want revenge, Kesha. I get that. I want blood too. But you are a forensic accountant. You don't catch a thief by yelling at them in the street. You catch them by closing the exits. You catch them by letting them think they got away with it until the handcuffs are on. I took a deep breath. He was right. He was always right about strategy. My anger was a wildfire, but I needed a laser. We need Andre to see this with his own eyes, Jamal said. We need him to be the one who ends her. Because if he divorces her for fraud, she gets nothing. If we just expose her online, she might still get a settlement. We need to cut off the money supply. And we need to get your money back. My $50,000. Exactly, Jamal said. If you blow this up tonight, you never see that money again. Dante spent it. Becky spent it. Tanisha spent it. The only way you get made whole is if we trap them. I looked at the phone face down on the counter. It was vibrating again. Another text from Dante probably. Or maybe a Venmo request from Becky. So what do we do? I asked. Do I just let them win tonight? Do I let them drag my name through the mud? Let them talk? Jamal said, his eyes cold and hard. Let them dig their graves. Let Tanisha think she won. Let Dante think he scared you. Let Becky think she is smarter than you. It will make them sloppy. They will get confident. And when they are confident, they will make mistakes. He gestured toward the hallway, toward the door that led to my home office. Go to your office, Kesha. Turn on your servers. Do what you do best. Follow the money. Find out where Dante spent your rent money. Find out how many credit cards Becky opened in your name. Find out exactly how much debt Tanisha is hiding from Andre. Build the file. I felt a shift in my chest. The panic was receding, replaced by a cold, mechanical focus. It was the feeling I got when I opened a fresh case file, when I stared at a chaotic spreadsheet and started to see the patterns. I stood up. I smoothed the wrinkles in my ruined silk dress. You are right, I said. I am not going to argue with them on Facebook. I am not going to beg my mother for forgiveness. I walked toward my office. I could feel Jamal watching me, a sentinel at my back. I walked into the dark room and tapped the spacebar on my keyboard. The 3 monitors on my desk flared to life, bathing the room in a cool blue glow. I sat down in my ergonomic chair. It felt like a cockpit. I cracked my knuckles. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. I logged into my professional software. I pulled up the background check databases. I pulled up the credit bureau portals. I pulled up the banking tracing tools. Dante threatened to ruin my reputation. He threatened the wrong sister. He forgot that my reputation is built on destroying people who think they can hide the truth in the numbers. I typed in my brother's name. I typed in my sister-in-law's name. I typed in Tanisha's name. If they want to play dirty, I said, my fingers flying across the keys, I will show them what a forensic accountant does when she is angry. I am not just going to find the skeletons in their closets. I am going to make them dance. The blue light from my 3 monitors washed over my face, turning my skin a ghostly cool tone in the dark office. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a second, trembling, not from fear, but from a lethal combination of caffeine and adrenaline. I took a sip of cold coffee and cracked my knuckles. It was time to go to work. Jamal sat across from me at his own workstation, the glow of his screens reflecting in his glasses. He had the old iPad Dante had borrowed 6 months ago and never returned, connected to his rig. Dante had complained it was broken, that it wouldn't hold a charge, and dumped it on us to fix. He was too lazy to come pick it up when we repaired it, and too stupid to realize he had never logged out of his iCloud account. I started with the credit bureaus. In my line of work, you learn that financial infidelity leaves footprints just as deep as physical ones. I logged into my own credit monitoring service, a premium tool I used for clients. I expected to see my usual accounts: the mortgage, my car note, my primary credit cards. Instead, I saw a stranger living inside my financial identity. There were 3 new inquiries in the last 4 months. 3 new lines of credit opened with Chase, Amex, and Discover. The total credit limit across all 3 was $45,000. I clicked on the application details. The address listed wasn't mine. It was a P.O. box in Decatur, but the social security number was mine. The mother's maiden name was correct. Dante. My own brother. The boy I had walked to school. The man whose rent I paid when he got fired for sleeping on the job. He had stolen my identity. He knew my social security number because I had co-signed his car loan 3 years ago. He had used that trust to open credit cards in my name. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. This wasn't just borrowing money. This was a felony. This was federal crime territory. I pulled up the transaction history for the Amex card. It was nearly maxed out. I scrolled through the charges expecting to see cash advances or maybe bills for his car. Instead, I saw a parade of luxury. $4,000 at Saks Fifth Avenue, $2,000 at Neiman Marcus, $3,000 at a high-end med spa in Buckhead. I paused at a series of charges labeled with a merchant code that usually indicated medical services. The vendor name was cryptic LH Wellness Group. The total was $15,000 over 6 weeks. I frowned. Was Tanisha actually sick? Was there a real medical issue they were hiding? I ran the vendor name through my forensic database. It wasn't a clinic. It wasn't a doctor's office. LH Wellness Group was a shell corporation, a holding company. I dug deeper, peeling back the layers of corporate registration until I found the doing business as name: Luxe Handbags and Resale. It was a luxury consignment shop, a place where you could buy vintage Birkins and limited edition Chanel. I cross-referenced the dates. On the day Tanisha supposedly had her emergency scan, the one I paid $5,000 for Becky's unauthorized card showed a $5,000 charge at this shop. They were disguising luxury shopping sprees as medical emergencies. They knew that if the credit card statement said Gucci, I would ask questions. But if it looked like a medical group, I wouldn't dare challenge it. I wouldn't want to be the insensitive friend questioning a pregnant woman's doctor bills. Becky had bought a $15,000 wardrobe on my credit disguised as prenatal care. I printed the statement. The sound of the printer whirring in the quiet room sounded like a gavel coming down. "Jamal," I said, my voice ice cold, "you need to see this. Dante opened 3 cards in my name, and Becky is wearing my credit score." Jamal didn't look up. His eyes were scanning lines of code and text logs on his screen. His face was a mask of disgust. "That is just the tip of the iceberg, Kesha," he said. "You need to come look at this." I got into the iPad. The backup synced 10 minutes ago when he connected to his home Wi-Fi. I rolled my chair over to his side of the desk. He had opened a messaging app. It was a group chat. The name of the group chat made the bile rise in my throat again. It was titled The Retirement Plan. The participants were Dante, Becky, and Tanisha. I started reading from the top of the visible log. The messages were dated 3 months ago. "Tanisha, he is buying it. He actually cried when I showed him the ultrasound. I downloaded it from Google Images and changed the name in Photoshop. Men are so stupid." Becky: "What about the accountant? Is she suspicious, Dante Kesha? Please, she is desperate to be the cool auntie. I told her we were short on the nursery deposit, and she wired $2,000 without blinking. She feels guilty because her womb is a dust bowl." I flinched. Reading it was worse than hearing it. My brother, my own flesh and blood, mocking my infertility to his wife and my best friend. Jamal reached out and squeezed my hand, grounding me. "Keep reading," he said. "Look at the plan for next month." I scrolled down. "Tanisha, we need to accelerate the timeline. Andre is talking about setting up a trust for the twins, but he wants his lawyer to manage it. I need him to sign the post-nuptial amendment first, the one that gives me 50% of his liquid assets in case of tragedy." Becky: "How do we trigger the tragedy?" "Tanisha, I am going to lose them at 7 months. It has to be late enough to be devastating, but early enough that I don't have to fake a live birth. 7 months is the sweet spot. It is a stillbirth window." I covered my mouth with my hand. They were planning a stillbirth. They were planning to fake the death of children that never existed. The cruelty was breathtaking. It was evil. "Dante, how do we make sure you get the payout, and not just sympathy, Tanisha?" "We blame the stress. I am going to say Kesha caused a scene. I will say she attacked me or she caused an accident. Andre already thinks she is unstable because of her jealousy.
I will tell him her toxicity caused my blood pressure to spike and detach the placenta. He will be so angry he will sign anything to comfort me, and he will cut her off forever. Becky genius. And Kesha will be so wrecked she will pay for the funeral. We can get that platinum casket package and just pocket the cash. Tanisha. Exactly. We retire on Andre's grief and Kesha's guilt. We take the money to the Caymans and live like royalty. I stared at the screen. The text was blurry because my eyes were burning. They weren't just thieves, they were predators. They had looked at my life, my husband, my career, and Andre's success, and they didn't see people. They saw carcasses to be picked clean. They saw a retirement fund, and they were going to use my name to destroy Andre's life. They were going to frame me for the death of his imaginary children. They are going to blame me, I whispered. They are going to tell Andre I killed his babies. Jamal's voice was hard. Not if we get to him first. Suddenly, a new message bubble popped up at the bottom of the screen. It was live. It was happening right now. Dante. The party was a disaster, but also perfect. Kesha running out like that makes her look crazy. Everyone is talking about it. Becky. She hasn't responded to the texts about the catering bill. She is ghosting us. Tanisha. She is silent because she is scared. She knows she messed up. She is probably at home crying to Jamal right now, wondering how to fix it. We need to press the advantage while she is weak. I watched the 3 dots dance on the screen as Tanisha typed her next message. Tanisha. I am going to the hospital tomorrow morning, early, around 6 a.m. I will say I am having severe cramping. I will call Kesha crying. I will tell her I am scared I am losing them because of the stress from the party. I will tell her the specialist demands a $10,000 deposit for emergency monitoring or they won't admit me. Becky, 10,000. Will she pay that, Tanisha? She will pay anything to make the guilt go away. She will drive to the hospital in her pajamas and hand me a check just to stop me from crying. We will have that money by noon. Dante. Nice. That covers the BMW lease and the trip to Miami next week. Tanisha. Get some sleep, fam. Tomorrow is showtime. We have a withdrawal to make. The chat went silent. I sat back in my chair. The blue light of the monitors felt like a spotlight now. They were coming for me in the morning, in 6 hours. They were going to wake me up with a lie about dying babies to extort $10,000. I looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. I looked at the stack of evidence we had gathered. The credit card fraud, the luxury handbag laundering scheme, the conspiracy to commit grand larceny against Andre, the emotional abuse. I looked at Jamal. They want $10,000, I asked. He nodded. That is the ask. I turned back to my computer. I opened a new window. I navigated to my bank account. I am going to give them exactly what they want, I said. Jamal frowned. What, Kesha, you cannot pay them? I am not going to pay them. I said, my voice steady and dangerous. I am going to play them. Tanisha wants a show at the hospital, fine. I will give her an audience. I picked up my phone. I scrolled to the contact for Andre's personal attorney. I had his number because I had done the audit for Andre's company last year. It was late, but I knew lawyers. They were always awake. I am going to the hospital tomorrow, I told Jamal. And I am going to be the most apologetic, guilty, terrified friend she has ever seen. I am going to cry. I am going to beg for forgiveness. And I am going to write her that check. Why? Jamal asked. Why give them more money? Because I said typing a quick text to the lawyer asking for an urgent meeting. The amount of the theft determines the prison sentence. Anything over $10,000 is a felony with a mandatory minimum in this state. If I hand her that check and she deposits it, she crosses the line from petty grifter to major felon. I looked at the group chat on the iPad one last time. They call it the retirement plan, I said.
I think that is a great name. Because where they are going, they are not going to be working for a very, very long time. I stood up. Get some sleep, Jamal. We have an early start. Tanisha is expecting a victim. I need to make sure I look the part. As I walked out of the office, I didn't feel tired anymore. I felt energized. I felt the cold, sharp clarity of the hunter. They had set a trap for me, but they didn't realize they had walked into a cage. And tomorrow morning at the hospital, I was going to lock the door. The automatic doors of St. Jude's private hospital slid open with a soft hiss, welcoming me into a lobby that smelled less like antiseptic and more like expensive lilies and old money.
This was not the emergency room where regular people went to wait for 6 hours with a broken arm. This was the VIP wing, the kind of place where the intake forms asked for your preferred brand of sparkling water before they asked for your insurance card. I walked across the polished marble floors, clutching my purse tightly against my chest. Inside the leather lining, hidden behind a pack of tissues, was a high-fidelity digital voice recorder. The little red light was taped over, but the device was rolling, capturing every footstep, every breath, every lie. I had spent the last hour in front of my bathroom mirror practicing my face. I had washed off my makeup to expose the dark circles under my eyes. I had pulled my hair into a messy, frantic bun. I wore a pair of sweatpants and an oversized hoodie, the uniform of a woman who had been dragged out of bed by guilt and terror. I needed to look broken. I needed to look defeated. Because if they smelled even a whiff of confidence on me, the trap would snap shut on my own fingers. I reached the elevators and pressed the button for the 4th floor, the maternity and high-risk observation unit. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic rhythm that I tried to slow with deep, measured breaths. This was it. This was the performance of a lifetime. When the elevator doors opened, the hallway was quiet, lined with artwork that cost more than my first apartment. I walked down the corridor, counting the room numbers. 402, 404, 406. And there she was, the gatekeeper. Becky was standing outside room 408, arms crossed over her chest, leaning against the wall like a bouncer at a club nobody wanted to get into. She was wearing yesterday's clothes, her hair slightly disheveled to match the aesthetic of the concerned sister-in-law. When she saw me coming, she pushed herself off the wall and stepped directly into my path, blocking the door. "You have got to be kidding me," Becky hissed, her voice low and venomous. "You actually have the nerve to show your face here. After what you did, I stopped letting my shoulders slump. I made my chin tremble. I summoned every ounce of grief I had felt when I lost my own baby, channeling it into this moment to make the tears real. Becky, please." I choked out, my voice thick. "I had to come. Dante told me she was in critical condition. He said the babies were in distress. Is she okay? Please tell me she is okay." Becky sneered, looking me up and down with a mixture of disgust and triumph. She enjoyed seeing me like this. She loved seeing the successful, put-together Kesha reduced to a begging mess in sweatpants. "She is in immense pain," Becky said, pointing a manicured finger in my face. Her blood pressure spiked to dangerous levels. "The doctors are talking about preeclampsia triggered by acute emotional trauma. Do you know what that means? It means you almost killed her. You almost killed those twins with your jealousy and your drama." I flinched as if she had slapped me. "I am so sorry," I whispered. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I got overwhelmed at the party. I wasn't thinking." "You are never thinking about anyone but yourself," Becky spat. "That is your problem. You think your money makes you special, but you are just a selfish, bitter woman who cannot stand to see anyone else happy. Tanisha is in there fighting for her life because of you. Andre is a wreck. He hasn't stopped crying. And frankly, I don't think you deserve to breathe the same air as them right now." I reached into my purse. I made sure my hand was shaking visibly. I pulled out a thick white envelope. It was heavy. Inside was $2,000 in hundreds and fifties. It was the bait. "Becky, wait," I said, holding the envelope out with trembling fingers. "I know I cannot fix what happened yesterday.
I know that. But Dante said. He said the insurance copay for the emergency specialist was high. He said they needed cash up front for the private room upgrade. Becky's eyes flicked down to the envelope. The disgust on her face didn't vanish, but it was instantly overlaid with a sharp, predatory greed. She didn't move out of the doorway, but her posture shifted. She leaned in closer. "What is this?" she asked, though she knew exactly what it was. "It is $2,000, I whispered, pressing it into her hand. "It is for the doctors, for tips, for whatever Tanisha needs right now. Please, Becky, just take it. I just want to help. I feel so guilty." Becky's fingers closed around the envelope. She squeezed it, gauging the thickness, estimating the count. A slow, satisfied smirk spread across her face. She tucked the envelope quickly into the pocket of her cardigan, making it disappear like a magic trick. "Well," she said, her voice suddenly dropping an octave, becoming conspiratorial and condescending, "at least you are trying to make amends. That is a start, Kesha. It doesn't erase what you did, but it shows you understand the gravity of the situation. Money cannot buy forgiveness, but it can pay for the comfort Tanisha needs right now." "Can I see her?" I begged. "Just for a minute, I need to apologize to Andre. I need to see her with my own eyes." Becky hesitated, glancing at the door. Then she stepped aside, her hand patting the pocket where my money was now sitting. "5 minutes," she warned. "And if you upset her, if you raise your voice even 1 decibel, I will have security drag you out by your hair. Do not make me regret this kindness, Kesha." "Thank you," I breathed. "Thank you, Becky." I pushed the heavy door open and stepped into the room. The blinds were drawn, casting the suite in a dim, dramatic twilight. The only light came from the bank of monitors next to the bed, their green and red lines tracing rhythms in the dark. Andre was sitting in a chair by the bedside, his head in his hands. He looked destroyed. His shoulders were shaking silently. This was a man who had built a construction empire, a man who could negotiate million-dollar contracts without blinking, and he was reduced to a pile of rubble by the fear of losing children that didn't exist. And in the bed lay Tanisha. She was hooked up to an IV drip. There was a blood pressure cuff on her arm and a fetal monitor strapped around her fake belly. She had her eyes closed, her head thrown back against the pillows, her face a mask of suffering. It was a performance that deserved a Tony Award. I stood by the door for a second, just watching them. The anger I felt was so cold it burned. Look at what she was doing to him. Look at the torture she was inflicting on her own husband just to secure a payout. "Andre," I whispered. Andre's head snapped up. His eyes were red-rimmed and swollen. When he saw me, his expression crumpled. He didn't look angry. He just looked lost. "Kesha," he croaked, his voice cracking. I rushed over to him. I fell to my knees beside his chair and grabbed his hands. "I am so sorry, Andre. I am so sorry. Is she okay? Are the babies okay?" "We don't know yet." Andre wept, gripping my hands so hard it hurt. "The doctors say her pressure is fluctuating. They are worried about the placenta. They said if she doesn't stabilize, they might have to do an emergency C-section. But it is too early, Kesha. They are too small." He was reciting the script she had fed him, the script from the group chat. "I will blame the stress. Tell him the placenta detached. It is going to be okay." I lied, hating myself for giving him false hope, but knowing I had to play the part. "She is strong, Andre. The babies are fighters." A groan came from the bed. Tanisha turned her head slowly, fluttering her eyelids open. She looked at me, and for a split second I saw the calculation in her eyes. I saw her assessing my outfit, my lack of makeup, the fear on my face. She saw a broken woman. She saw a victory. "Kesha," she whispered, her voice weak and breathy. "Why are you here?" I stood up and walked to the side of the bed. I looked down at the silicone bump strapped to her body under the hospital gown. I wanted to rip it off. I wanted to expose her right there. But Jamal's voice was in my head. "Close the exits. I am here because I love you, Tanisha."
I said, tears leaking from my eyes. Real tears born of frustration and rage. I am here because I made a terrible mistake yesterday. I let my own insecurities get the best of me. I ruined your day, and now you are in here, and it is all my fault. Tanisha let out a long, shuddering sigh. She reached for her water cup with a trembling hand, and Andre jumped up to help her, holding the straw to her lips. She took a sip and looked at me with the eyes of a martyr. "It really hurt me, Kesha," she said softly. "I needed you. I needed my best friend, and you made it all about you. You made a scene in front of everyone. My blood pressure. I could feel it rising when you started yelling. I thought I was going to have a stroke. I know," I sobbed, bowing my head. "I know. I am a terrible friend. I was jealous, Tanisha. Seeing you so happy, seeing the nursery, the gifts, it just reminded me of what I lost." And I snapped. "I am so ashamed." Tanisha's expression softened into a smug, benevolent forgiveness. She reached out and patted my hand. "I understand," she said. "It is hard for you. I know you can't help it. But you have to understand my babies come first. I cannot have that kind of toxicity around them. I will fix it," I said, looking up at her with wide, desperate eyes. "I promise, Tanisha. I will make it up to you. I will do whatever it takes to earn back your trust." She looked at me, waiting. She was waiting for the offer. She was waiting for the check. "What can you do?" she asked, her voice hardening just a fraction. "This hospital stay is expensive, Kesha. The specialist alone is $5,000, and the stress. I don't know if I can plan the rest of the arrival. I am too weak." I took a step closer. I leaned in, invading her personal space, bringing my face close to hers, so Andre, who was sitting on the other side of the bed, couldn't hear the specifics. I lowered my voice to a conspiratorial whisper, the kind of whisper shared between best friends plotting a world takeover. "I will handle everything," I whispered. "Listen to me, Tanisha. I want to throw you a gender reveal party. Not just a party. The event of the century." Tanisha's eyes flickered. "A gender reveal." "Yes," I hissed, my voice vibrating with manic intensity. "I want to apologize to you in front of everyone. I want to show the whole world how much I support you. I will rent the botanical gardens. I will hire the celebrity planner you like. I will invite everyone. Andre's business partners, Dante's connections, the entire social register of Atlanta." I saw the greed ignite behind her eyes. It was like watching a shark smell blood in the water. A massive party, an audience, a stage for her performance. "You would do that," she whispered back, her weakness momentarily forgotten. "I will pay for everything, I promised. The venue, the catering, the press. I will make you a star, Tanisha. You deserve to be celebrated. You deserve to shine. I want to give you the reveal you have always dreamed of. Just tell me you will let me do this. Tell me you will forgive me." Tanisha looked at me. She looked at the desperation on my face, the mess of my hair, the total submission in my posture. She thought she had won. She thought she had broken me completely. She licked her lips. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, Kesha. If it means that much to you. You can do the party. But it has to be perfect. No budget cuts." "Unlimited budget," I said. "I swear." She smiled then. It was the smile from the video, the smile of the wolf in the sheep pen. She nodded slowly, her head sinking back into the pillow, the picture of the exhausted, gracious queen. "Thank you, Kesha," she said loudly enough for Andre to hear. "I forgive you." I straightened up and wiped my eyes. I turned to Andre. "She is going to be okay, Andre," I said. "We are going to make sure of it. I am going to take care of everything." Andre stood up and hugged me, weeping onto my shoulder. "Thank you, Kesha," he sobbed. "Thank you for being here. I don't know what we would do without you." I hugged him back, looking over his shoulder at Tanisha. She was already on her phone, probably texting Becky, probably texting Dante. "The ATM is open. The fish is on the hook."
I patted Andre's back. You are family, Andre, I said, my voice steady and cold as ice. And I always take care of family. I pulled away. I needed to leave before I vomited again. I am going to go start the planning, I said. Get some rest, Tanisha. You have a big day coming up. I walked out of the room. Becky was still in the hallway counting the cash in the envelope. She looked up as I exited, a smirk playing on her lips. See? Becky said. Was that so hard? Being a good person isn't difficult, Kesha. You just have to know your place. I walked past her without breaking stride. I didn't trust myself to speak. I walked down the corridor, past the expensive art, past the nurse's station and into the elevator. As the doors closed, isolating me in the silver box, I let out a long, shaky breath. I reached into my bra and clicked the stop button on the recorder. I had the bribe. I had the emotional manipulation. I had the agreement. And most importantly, I had the date. She wanted a party. She wanted to shine. I leaned my head against the cool metal wall of the elevator and closed my eyes. Oh, Tanisha, I thought. You are going to shine all right. I'm going to light you up like a Roman candle, and when the smoke clears, there won't be anything left but ash. 2 days after the hospital performance, I sat in the back corner of a coffee shop called The Daily Grind. It was located in an industrial park 3 towns over from Buckhead. It was the kind of place where tired truck drivers and construction workers grabbed a caffeine fix before their shifts. It was not the kind of place where Andre usually drank his coffee. He was a man of single-origin beans and oat milk lattes served in ceramic cups. But today he was meeting me here because I told him it was the only place we could speak without eyes on us. I had arrived 30 minutes early. I sat with my back to the wall facing the door. On the scratched wooden table in front of me sat a thick manila folder. It looked innocuous. It looked like tax returns or maybe a lease agreement. But inside that folder was the autopsy of a marriage. It was the paper trail of a betrayal so deep, it made my own heartache feel like a paper cut. When Andre walked in, the bell above the door jingled cheerfully, a stark contrast to the storm cloud on his face. He looked terrible. He was wearing a tracksuit, which was unheard of for him on a Tuesday. His eyes were bloodshot, and there was a gray cast to his skin that spoke of sleepless nights and skipping meals. He spotted me, and his jaw tightened. He walked over and slid into the booth opposite me without saying hello. You have 5 minutes, Kesha, Andre said, his voice rough and scratchy. I should not even be here. Tanisha is at home on bed rest because of you. She is terrified you are going to try to hurt the babies again. She told me not to talk to you, but I needed to hear you say it to my face. Say what, Andre, I asked, keeping my voice low and steady. Say that you are sorry, he snapped. Say that you are going to pay the bills you walked out on. Say that you are going to leave us alone. Tanisha is fragile, Kesha. Do you have any idea what stress does to a high-risk pregnancy? I looked at him. I looked at this man I had known for 5 years. He was a good man. He was generous. He was kind. He had built a logistics company from the ground up with his own 2 hands. He was smart in business, but when it came to his wife, he was blind. He was so desperate to be a father that he had turned off his critical thinking skills. I am not going to say any of those things, Andre, I said, and I am not going to pay those bills. He stood up to leave his chair, scraping loudly against the floor. Then I am done here. My lawyer will be contacting you about the harassment. Sit down, Andre, I commanded. My voice wasn't loud, but it had the authority of a judge banging a gavel. You need to look at what is in this folder. If you walk out that door now, you are going to lose everything. Your company, your home, your future. He hesitated. He looked at the door, then back at me. Curiosity and fear warred in his eyes. He sat back down slowly, but he did not relax. What is it, he asked. More lies. Tanisha told me you might try to fabricate things. She said you are obsessed with her. I didn't respond to the accusation. I just slid the folder across the sticky table. Open it, I said. He stared at the folder for a long moment before flipping it open. The first page was a spreadsheet I had compiled.
It was a forensic analysis of his household spending over the last 6 months, but it wasn't the numbers that mattered. It was the names. I watched his eyes scan the lines. He frowned. "What is this?" he asked. "These are credit card statements. This is the card I gave Tanisha for baby supplies." "Look closer," I said. "Look at the authorized user." He squinted. "Becky. Why is Dante's wife on my credit card?" "Because Tanisha added her," I explained. "And look at the charges, Andre. Look at the dates." He ran his finger down the column. Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Saks Fifth Avenue. The dates aligned perfectly with the days Tanisha claimed she was at doctor appointments. The days she claimed she was too sick to get out of bed. "She told me these were medical bills," he whispered. "She said the insurance was taking time to reimburse us. She said this was for the specialists." "There is no specialist, Andre," I said softly. LH Wellness Group is a shell company registered to Becky. It is a front for a luxury reseller. They are buying handbags with your money and reselling them for cash. He shook his head in denial. "No. No, she wouldn't. She is nesting. She is just... Maybe she got confused. Maybe Becky stole the card." "Turn the page," I said. He turned the page. This was the kill shot. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a screenshot. It was from the group chat Jamal and I had recovered from Dante's iPad. It was dated 2 days before the baby shower. The screenshot showed a selfie of Tanisha holding up a positive pregnancy test. But the caption didn't say "We are so blessed." The text message underneath the photo read, "He is such a gullible idiot. I printed this test result off the internet and taped it to a stick I peed on. He cried like a baby. I have never seen a grown man look so pathetic. Once he signs the post-nup amendment giving me the liquid assets, I am going to milk this for every dime. The twins are going to need a very expensive nursery before they tragically disappear." I watched Andre read the text. I watched his brain try to reject it. I watched him try to find a way to make it not be true. But then he saw the timestamp, and he saw the reply from Becky. "Lol, he is a mark. Get that bag, sis." And Tanisha's reply. "The only thing bigger than his ego is his stupidity. I cannot wait until I don't have to pretend to like his cooking anymore. Or him." Andre made a sound that I will never forget. It wasn't a cry. It was the sound of a lung collapsing. It was the sound of the air being sucked out of his world. He dropped the paper. His hands started to shake so violently he had to grip the edge of the table to stop them. "She said that," he whispered. His voice was broken. "She called me a mark. She has been planning this for months." "Andre," I said, reaching across the table but not touching him. I needed him to feel this. I needed the pain to burn away the denial. "She is not just spending your money, she is liquidating your life. That post-nuptial agreement she has been pushing for, the one she said was to protect the babies." He nodded numbly. "She said it was standard. She said her lawyer recommended it because of the high-risk pregnancy." "It is a trap," I said. "It transfers 50% of your company's operating capital into a trust in her name in the event of a medical tragedy involving the children. And Andre, there is going to be a tragedy. She is planning a miscarriage." Andre's face went from pale to purple. The veins in his neck bulged. The sadness evaporated in a flash of pure white-hot rage. He stood up so fast, the table shook and coffee sloshed over the rim of my cup. "I am going to kill her," he growled. "I am going home right now. I am going to drag her out of that bed and throw her into the street." He turned to storm out. "Andre, stop!" I shouted, standing up and blocking his path. "Move, Kesha!" He snapped, his eyes wild. "She is in my house. She is lying in my bed laughing at me. I am not going to let her get away with this for one more second." "If you go there now, you lose," I said, grabbing his shoulders and shaking him. "Listen to me. You lose everything." He tried to push past me, but I held firm. "Think, Andre," I hissed. "Think about the law. Right now, to the rest of the world, she is a pregnant woman on bed rest. If you go in there screaming and throw her out,
Do you know what happens? She calls the police. She claims you attacked her. She claims your stress caused a miscarriage. So what he yelled, it is all fake. But you cannot prove that yet. I said, not to a judge.
Not today. If you kick her out, she sues you for divorce. She gets alimony. She gets half the house. She gets sympathy from every judge in Atlanta because you abandoned your pregnant wife. Do you want to pay her for the rest of your life? Do you want to write a check to the woman who called you an idiot every month for the next 20 years? Andre stopped fighting me. He slumped against the wall of the coffee shop, breathing hard. She is faking. The pregnancy. Isn't she? He asked, looking at me with pleading eyes. Tell me the truth, Kesha. There are no babies. I took a deep breath. This was the moment. I could show him the video of the fake belly. But if I did, he might explode again. I needed him cold. I needed him calculating. There are no babies, Andre, I said softly. It is a moon bump, a silicone prosthetic. She takes it off when you aren't looking. He slid down the wall until he was crouching on the floor, his head in his hands. He wept. He wept for the children he thought he was going to have. He wept for the nursery he had painted. He wept for the names he had picked out. I stood guard over him, shielding him from the view of the barista. I let him cry. He needed to grieve the future he thought he had before he could fight for the one he deserved. After a few minutes, he went quiet. He wiped his face with his sleeve and stood up. When he looked at me, the tears were gone. His eyes were dry and hard like flint. She takes it off, he asked, his voice devoid of emotion. Yes, I said. And Becky knows, and Dante. They are all in on it. They are splitting the money. Andre nodded slowly. He adjusted his tracksuit. He smoothed his hair. He looked like a man putting on a suit of armor. So what is the plan, he asked. You didn't bring me here just to break my heart, Kesha. You have a plan. I do, I said. I picked up the folder and handed it to him. Keep this. Give it to your lawyer. Tell him to draft a divorce filing based on fraud, but do not file it yet. We need one more thing. What? We need public proof, I said. We need something so undeniable, so humiliating that she cannot spin it. We need to catch her in the act in front of witnesses. The party, he said, realizing. The gender reveal. Exactly, I said. She wants a show. She wants the biggest party Atlanta has ever seen. She wants to invite your investors, your partners, your rivals. She wants to cement her status as the queen of Buckhead. She asked me for $50,000 for it, Andre said. She said she wanted to hire a celebrity host. Give it to her, I said. Give her whatever she wants. Let her build the stage. Let her invite the audience. Because when that curtain goes up, we are going to be the ones running the show. Andre's eyes narrowed. You want me to pretend, he said. You want me to go home and kiss her and rub that plastic belly and tell her I love her. I want you to be the best actor in the world, I said. I want you to be the doting husband. I want you to be the excited father. I want you to make her feel so safe, so secure, that she gets sloppy. I want her to think she has won, because when she thinks she has won, she will let her guard down. And then Andre asked, and then I said, I am going to need access to the AV system at the venue. I need you to make sure Jamal and I are the ones handling the tech. Can you do that? Andre nodded. A dark, grim smile touched his lips. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who was about to burn his own house down to kill the termites. I can do that, he said. I will tell her I want to surprise her with a special video montage of our relationship. She is so vain, she will love that. Perfect, I said. Andre looked at me. Why are you doing this, Kesha? He asked. They hurt you too. You could have just walked away. You could have let me find out on my own. I thought about the money they stole from me. I thought about the insults. But mostly, I thought about the way Tanisha had looked at me in that hospital bed, the way she had used my love for her as a weapon. Because I said she made a mistake, Andre. She thought I was weak. She thought I was just a checkbook.
She forgot that before I was her friend, I was a woman who built a career on finding the truth. I held out my hand. Are we partners? Andre took my hand. His grip was crushing. Partners, he said. He checked his watch. I have to go home, he said. I have to go make my wife some soup. I have to tell her how much I love our babies. He walked to the door. Before he left, he turned back. Kesha. Yes. Make sure the projector is bright, he said. I want everyone in the back row to see the color of her soul. I smiled. Don't worry, Andre. It is going to be high definition. He walked out into the sunlight and I sat back in the booth. I took a sip of my cold coffee. It tasted bitter, but it was the best thing I had ever drank. The alliance was formed, the trap was set. Now we just had to wait for the mouse to take the cheese. The week leading up to the gender reveal party was a masterclass in submission. I had to become the version of myself that they wanted to see. I had to be the broken, desperate, people-pleasing doormat that they had spent years trying to mold me into. It was the hardest acting role of my life because every instinct in my body wanted to fight back. Every time Becky sneered or Dante demanded cash, my hand twitched toward my phone to expose them right then and there. But I held back. I kept my eyes on the prize. I kept thinking about the moment the lights would go down and the truth would go up. Monday started with the venue. Tanisha had demanded the Starlight Garden, a massive private estate in Buckhead that cost $15,000 just to unlock the gates. She wanted it because it had a massive outdoor LED wall, usually used for concerts, and she wanted her baby's gender to be broadcast like a Super Bowl score. I sat in my home office with Jamal standing behind me, his hand resting on my shoulder as I pulled up the wire transfer screen. $15,000. It was a sickening amount of money to spend on a lie. Do it, Jamal said softly. It is safe. I typed in the routing number. But I didn't send it to the Starlight Garden's main account. I sent it to a company called Zenith Audio Visual. To Tanisha and Becky, Zenith AV looked like just another high-end vendor, the exclusive production partner for the estate. But Zenith AV was a shell. It was a limited liability company Jamal had registered 3 years ago for consulting work. We had spent the weekend building a fake website for it, populating it with stock photos of high-end events and fake testimonials. We had routed the venue contract through this entity. By paying Zenith, I wasn't just paying for the space. I was paying for total control. It meant that on the day of the party, the soundboard, the lighting rig, and most importantly, that massive 60-foot LED screen would be operated by technicians on Jamal's payroll. We weren't just attending the party, we were producing it. I hit send. The money left my account. I took a screenshot of the confirmation and texted it to Tanisha. Done. The venue is secured. They said we have full access to the screens. Her reply came in 10 seconds. Finally. Make sure they have the confetti cannons ready, and Kesha, do not be late with the rest of the payments. My stress levels are high today. I put the phone down and exhaled. 1 trap set, 2 to go. Wednesday was Becky. She called me at work, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness she used when she wanted something. She told me that as the sister-in-law and the future auntie, she needed to look the part. She had decided she was going to be the mistress of ceremonies for the reveal. She was going to hold the microphone. She was going to command the stage, and she needed a dress that said authority. I met her at Phipps Plaza, the most expensive mall in Atlanta. She was waiting for me outside Neiman Marcus, looking impatient, tapping her foot in a pair of shoes I knew for a fact she had bought with my stolen credit card information. You are late, she said, checking her watch. I am sorry, Becky, I said, keeping my head down, my voice meek. Traffic was bad. She rolled her eyes. You always have an excuse. Come on. I have a personal shopper waiting. For the next 2 hours, I sat on a velvet-tufted ottoman and watched Becky try on gowns that cost more than my first car. She paraded in front of the mirror, twirling, preening, criticizing the staff. She treated the sales associates like servants, snapping her fingers when she wanted a different size. She finally settled on a floor-length gold sequined gown. It was loud. It was tacky. It was $3,000. It fits perfectly, she said, admiring herself in the mirror. It says royalty, doesn't it? Tanisha is the queen, but I am the hand of the queen. I need to look important. You look beautiful, Becky. I lied. She turned to me, her eyes cold. You know, Kesha, it is good you are doing this. It shows you are finally learning your place. For a while there, I thought you actually believed you were better than us, just because you went to school and married a tech guy. But water seeks its own level, doesn't it? You are finally realizing that you are just the support staff in this family. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. I dug my fingernails into my palms to keep from slapping her. I just want Tanisha to be happy, I said quietly. Good, she said. Then pay the lady. And get the matching shoes too. I am not wearing old shoes with this dress. I walked to the counter. I handed over my card. The total came to $3,800 with tax and the shoes. I signed the receipt. As we walked out of the store, Becky carrying the massive garment bag, she leaned in close to me. Don't think this buys you a front row seat, she whispered. You are still sitting in the back with the rest of the help. I just want you to look presentable while you are back there. We don't want you embarrassing us. I watched her walk away, her hips swaying, her head held high. She thought she was the queen. She didn't realize she was just wearing a very expensive prison uniform. I went home and logged the receipt into my evidence folder. I scanned it. I highlighted the date. I added it to the spreadsheet labeled restitution. Friday was Dante. He showed up at my house at 7 in the morning, pounding on the door like the police. I opened it in my robe, holding a cup of coffee. He pushed past me without asking, walking straight into my kitchen and opening the fridge. You are out of orange juice, he complained, grabbing a soda instead. Good morning, Dante, I said, closing the front door. What do you need? I need a car, he said, popping the tab on the soda. Excuse me. A car, Kesha. A vehicle. Tanisha has all these appointments now. The high-risk specialist, the physical therapy for her back. Andre is busy with work trying to pay for everything since you bailed on the medical bills initially. Someone needs to drive her. And that someone is you, I asked. Dante puffed out his chest. I am her brother-in-law. I am stepping up. But my BMW is in the shop. I need something reliable. Something safe for the twins. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded sheaf of papers. He slammed them onto the kitchen island. I found a Range Rover, he said. It is used, but it is clean, low miles. The dealership said they can get me in it today, but my credit is… it is recovering. Recovering. That was a nice way of saying he had a credit score in the low 4s, because he never paid a bill in his life. I need a cosigner, he said. I looked at the papers. It was a lease agreement. The monthly payment was $1,200. The term was 36 months. Dante, I said, keeping my voice trembling. I cannot take on another car payment. If you default, they come after me. I am not going to default, he shouted, slamming his hand on the counter. Why do you always assume I am going to fail? This is for Tanisha. This is for the babies. Do you want them to take an Uber to the hospital? Do you want them to be unsafe? He was using the script, the same script they always used. Guilt. Family obligation. The imaginary babies. Fine, I whispered, letting my shoulders slump in defeat. Fine, Dante. I will sign, but you have to promise you will make the payments. I promise, he said, his mood instantly flipping from aggression to charm. Don't worry, sis. I got a big deal coming through next month. I will refinance it out of your name in no time. I reached into the junk drawer next to the sink. My hand brushed past the real pens, the permanent markers, and grabbed the blue gel pen that Jamal had brought home from the office yesterday. It looked like a standard Pilot G2. It wrote smoothly. The ink was vibrant blue. But it wasn't ink. It was a chemical compound developed for security testing. It was designed to oxidize and vanish completely within 48 hours of exposure to air. I leaned over the counter. I signed my name on the cosigner line. I signed it with a flourish. I dated it. There I said, capping the pen and sliding the papers back to him. Go get the car, Dante. Take care of Tanisha. He grinned, snatching the papers up. You did the right thing, Kesha. Finally. Maybe there is hope for you yet. He ran out of the house. He was so excited to go get his new toy, he didn't even say goodbye. I watched him drive away. In 2 days he would be driving that Range Rover, showing it off to his friends, picking up Becky. And then the dealership would open their files on Monday morning to process the final registration, and they would find a contract with a blank signature line. They would repossess the car. They would flag him for fraud. I poured my coffee down the sink. It was cold. The pieces were all in place. I had paid the venue, which meant we controlled the tech. I had bought the dress, which meant Becky would be standing center stage in a spotlight I paid for. I had signed the lease, which meant Dante would be driving a stolen car to the party. They were all so confident. They were all so drunk on their own victory. They thought they had broken me. They thought I was their infinite resource. Saturday night, I sat on my couch with Jamal. The house was quiet. We weren't working on the case anymore. The file was complete. The PowerPoint was ready. The video was rendered and loaded onto a secure drive. My phone buzzed. It was Tanisha. Hey, bestie. Just doing a final check for tomorrow. I am so excited. I feel like this is going to be our fresh start. I stared at the screen. The audacity was breathtaking. She was texting me about a fresh start while planning to frame me for a miscarriage next week. Then a second text came through. One last thing. For the reveal moment. I told Andre it is a boy. He is obsessed with having a son. But I want the smoke to be blue. Like really blue. Electric blue. I want it to cover the whole stage. Make sure the cannon is loaded, okay? Don't mess this up. He needs to see blue. She was lying to him, even about the lie. She probably hadn't even decided what gender the fake babies were supposed to be until 5 minutes ago. She just wanted whatever would make Andre open his wallet wider. I typed my reply. My thumbs moved steady and sure. Don't worry, Tanisha. I handled the cannons personally. It is going to be a color no one will ever forget. I hit send. I looked at Jamal. Is it ready? I asked. He nodded. The projector is 4,000 lumens. The sound system is concert grade. When we hit play, they are going to hear it in the next county. I leaned back into the sofa. Blue smoke, I whispered. She wants blue smoke. Well, Jamal said, smiling that dark, sharp smile. She is going to get the truth instead, and the truth, Kesha, is usually pretty black and white. We went to bed early. We needed our rest. Tomorrow was a big day. Tomorrow we were going to a party, and I had a feeling it was going to be a blast. The air in the Starlight Gardens smelled like jasmine, expensive perfume, and old money. It was the kind of humidity that usually made hair frizz and tempers short, but here under the canopy of century-old oaks draped in fairy lights, even the weather seemed to bow to the budget. I stood near the edge of the manicured lawn, holding a tray of crystal flutes that I wasn't supposed to be holding, watching the scene I had paid for unfold. 100 of Atlanta's elite were milling about. There were business partners of Andre's men in bespoke suits, who talked about market shares and golf handicaps. There were Tanisha's influencer friends, women who experienced life primarily through the lens of a smartphone camera, posing against the flower wall I had rented for $4,000. And then there was Becky. She was impossible to miss. The gold sequined gown I had bought her caught the light from the chandeliers hung in the trees, making her look like a disco ball that had gained sentience and a bad attitude. She was moving through the crowd with a glass of champagne in one hand and a wireless microphone in the other, acting as the self-appointed director of the evening. Kesha, Becky's voice cut through the ambient jazz music like a serrated knife. She snapped her fingers at me from across the patio. I forced my face into a mask of subservience and walked over. Yes, Becky, I asked. Look at that table centerpiece, she said, pointing a manicured nail at table 4. The hydrangeas are wilting. It looks tacky. Fix it. And try to look a little more festive. You are bringing down the vibe with that face. I looked at the flowers. They were perfectly fresh. I will take care of it, Becky, I said quietly. Good, she sniffed. And make sure the caterers are ready with the hors d'oeuvres. Tanisha will be here any minute and she needs to eat. She is eating for 3. Remember I walked away, my heels sinking slightly into the soft grass. I wasn't going to fix the flowers. I was going to the tech booth, but before I could get there, a heavy hand landed on my shoulder. I turned around to see my brother Dante. He was wearing a white linen suit that was a size too small, grinning like he had just won the lottery. Did you see it? He asked, gesturing toward the valet stand. See what the range, he said, puffing out his chest. The valet parked it right up front. They know a boss when they see one. That car drives like a dream, Kesha. Smooth, powerful, just like me. I looked at him. My brother. The man who had stolen my identity. The man who was currently driving a stolen vehicle because the lease agreement he signed was written in disappearing ink. It is a nice car, Dante, I said. Enjoy it while it lasts. Oh, I plan to. He laughed, missing the subtext entirely. I am thinking of driving it down to Miami next week for the boys' trip. Tanisha said she might need me there for support, just in case. Just in case she needs someone to help her fake a miscarriage, I thought. There is my handsome son. My mother's voice boomed across the lawn. She swept in wearing a floral dress and a wide-brimmed hat, looking every inch the proud matriarch. She walked right past me, not even glancing in my direction, and wrapped Dante in a hug. You look so successful, Dante, she gushed. I saw the car out front. I told your father that is my boy. That is the ambition I raised. Dante preened. Thanks, Ma. Just making moves, And Becky, my mother cried, spotting the gold sequins. You look stunning, sweetheart. That dress was made for you. You look like the hostess of the year. Thank you, Mom. Becky beamed, coming over to join the circle of adoration. It is a lot of work planning an event like this, but someone has to step up. Tanisha needs strong women around her right now. My mother finally turned to me. Her eyes flicked up and down my simple black dress, the same one I wore to client meetings. Oh, Kesha, she said, her tone dropping flat. You are here. I assume you handled the parking situation. The valet line was a bit long. I handled everything. Mom, I said. Well, try to stay out of the way, she said, turning her back on me to adjust Dante's lapel. We want the photos to look cohesive. I stood there for a moment watching them. My family. They looked so happy. They looked so secure in their superiority. They thought I was the help. They thought I was the bank. They had no idea I was the executioner. A hush fell over the crowd. The music swelled to a dramatic crescendo. The double doors of the estate house opened. Tanisha appeared. She was a vision in royal blue. The gown was custom-made, draped expertly to accentuate the massive curve of her belly. And what a belly it was! It was the deluxe model, the silicone prosthetic I had found on her credit card statement for $5,000. It had realistic skin texture, a belly button, and was weighted to move naturally. She held it with both hands, cradling the lie as if it were precious porcelain. The crowd gasped and applauded. Tanisha paused at the top of the stairs, soaking it in. She tilted her head back, smiling beatifically, playing the role of the glowing, miraculous mother-to-be. She descended the stairs, slowly, acting out the waddle of a woman carrying twins. Andre was waiting at the bottom. He looked dashing in a tuxedo, but I knew what was under that calm exterior. I caught his eye for a fraction of a second. He gave a barely perceptible nod. He took Tanisha's hand and kissed it. He led her through the parting crowd toward the stage we had set up at the far end of the garden. Behind the stage was the massive LED wall I had paid for. It was currently displaying a loop of animated storks and floating hearts in blue and pink. Tanisha climbed the steps to the stage, settling onto a plush love seat we had placed there for her. Becky rushed up to fluff her dress and hand her a bottle of water, playing the dutiful lady-in-waiting. Becky grabbed the microphone. "Welcome, everyone," she shouted, her voice echoing off the surrounding trees. "Welcome to the royal reveal. We are so honored you could join us to celebrate Tanisha and Andre and the two little princes or princesses who are about to bless our lives." The crowd cheered. Before we get to the big moment, Becky continued, "I want to invite the father of the year, the man of the hour, Andre, to say a few words." Andre took the microphone. He looked out at the sea of faces. He looked at Dante, who was sipping a scotch he hadn't paid for. He looked at my mother, who was beaming at Tanisha. He looked at Tanisha, who was rubbing her fake belly, and smiling up at him with a look of pure predatory triumph. She thought she had him. She thought he was the mark. "Thank you, Becky," Andre said. His voice was steady, deep, and resonant. He turned to look at Tanisha. "Tanisha," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "When you told me we were pregnant, my life changed. I have wanted to be a father for so long. And when you told me it was twins, I felt like the luckiest man in Atlanta." Tanisha wiped a fake tear from her eye. The crowd murmured in collective awe. "We have been through a lot to get here," Andre continued. "There have been scares. There have been late nights at the hospital. There have been so many expenses. But you always told me that family is worth any cost." He turned back to the audience. "I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank Dante and Becky for their unique support." Dante raised his glass, arrogant and oblivious. But mostly, Andre said, his eyes scanning the crowd until they found me standing near the tech booth. "Mostly, I want to thank Kesha." The crowd turned to look at me. Becky frowned. Tanisha stiffened slightly on her throne. "Kesha has been more than a friend," Andre said. "She has been a savior. She has been there for every doctor's appointment that she was allowed to attend. She has paid for things when we were struggling. She has been the only person who truly saw what was happening in our home. She is my best friend, and without her tonight would not be possible." Tanisha's smile was plastered on, but her eyes were darting around nervously. This wasn't in the script. Why was he praising me? I was supposed to be the villain. I was supposed to be the jealous, barren friend they tolerated. Andre turned back to Tanisha. "So, my love," he said, "are you ready to find out the truth?" "Yes!" Tanisha squealed, clapping her hands, eager to get the attention back on her. "I am ready." Andre looked up at the sky. "We have a special reveal tonight," he announced. "No simple balloons for us. We have rigged the stage with smoke cannons and the largest screen in the city. When the countdown hits 0, the sky is going to light up with the color of our future." He gestured to the tech booth. I was standing right next to it now. I looked through the glass. Jamal was sitting at the control board. His fingers were hovering over the execute key. He looked at me. I nodded. "All right, everyone," Becky shouted into her mic. "Count it down with me. 10. The crowd roared. 9. Tanisha grabbed Andre's hand. She squeezed it. She was vibrating with excitement. She was thinking about the post-nup. She was thinking about the millions. 8. My mother was clapping, a wide grin on her face. Dante was filming with his phone, ready to post it to his story. 7. I stepped closer to the stage. I wanted a front row seat. 6-5. Andre let go of Tanisha's hand. He took a step back. He wanted to be out of the splash zone. 4-3. Tanisha closed her eyes, visualizing blue smoke. Blue for boys. Blue for the sons that would secure her fortune. 2-1-0. Tanisha threw her arms in the air, screaming in delight. But there was no boom, there was no smoke. The cannons remained silent. The crowd went quiet, confused.
Welcome and thank you for staying with me. Comment your location so I know you're here and tell me honestly, have you ever trusted someone for years? only to realize you never really knew them at all, because that's where this story truly begins. Before we go on a quick disclaimer, parts of this story include fictional elements added to enhance the message and storytelling. Any similarities to real people or settings are coincidental, but the lesson is absolutely real.
Then a sound tore through the speakers. It wasn't music. It wasn't a fanfare. It was the sound of Velcro ripping. It was loud. It was amplified to concert levels. Rip! Tanisha's eyes snapped open. She looked around confused. And then the massive LED screen behind her, which had been displaying floating hearts, went black. A second later, it flickered to life. But it wasn't showing pink or blue. It was showing a bedroom. The video was grainy but huge, 60 feet wide, high definition. On the screen, a giant Tanisha stood by a bed. A giant Becky sat next to her. And then, in slow, horrifying detail, the giant Tanisha reached under her dress. The sound of the Velcro ripping echoed across the garden again, perfectly synced with the video. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath that sucked the oxygen out of the garden. On the screen, Tanisha pulled the massive silicone stomach off her body.
Oh God, that feels better.
The Tanisha on the screen groaned, her voice booming through the subwoofer, shaking the ground. It is so hot in that thing. In the real world, on the stage, the real Tanisha froze. Her hands were still in the air. Her mouth was open. She turned slowly to look at the screen behind her. She saw herself holding her own stomach in her hands. She saw Becky handing her a bottle of vodka. "You are a genius, Tanisha," the screen. Becky cackled, her voice sharp and cruel. "Look at them out there. Andre is crying over a pair of baby shoes, and Kesha is running around like a headless chicken." The real Becky dropped her microphone. It hit the stage with a deafening thud of feedback. My mother, standing in the front row, put her hand to her chest. Her face went gray. Dante lowered his phone, his mouth hanging open. "That idiot Kesha just wired Dante $2,000, the screen," Tanisha bragged, taking a swig of vodka. "That is our spa money." The crowd began to murmur. The murmur grew into a roar. People were pointing, people were laughing, people were horrified. On stage, Tanisha let out a scream. It wasn't a scream of joy. It was the scream of an animal caught in a trap. "Turn it off!" she shrieked, lunging toward the screen as if she could physically stop the pixels. "Turn it off! It's a lie! It's AI! Turn it off!" She ran toward the back of the stage, toward the cables. But Andre stepped in her path. He wasn't the doting husband anymore. He stood like a statue, his face stone cold. He stuck his foot out. Tanisha, blinded by panic and the voluminous folds of her gown, didn't see it. She tripped. She fell forward hard. She hit the deck of the stage with a heavy thud. And then physics took over. The impact of the fall jarred the straps of the deluxe silicone prosthetic she was wearing. The one I had paid for. It popped loose. Before the eyes of 100 of Atlanta's most influential people, Tanisha's pregnant belly slid out from under her dress. It rolled across the stage like a loose basketball. It bounced once, twice, and came to a rest at the feet of my mother. My mother stared down at the silicone lump. It stared back, smooth and flesh-colored and lifeless. The video on the screen kept playing. "I will have a miscarriage next week," the giant Tanisha said. "I will blame it on stress caused by Kesha." The silence in the garden was absolute. It was the silence of a tomb. And then from the tech booth, Jamal turned the volume knob all the way to the right. Becky clinked her glass. To the twins. The invisible heirs to the empire. The video froze on that frame. Becky laughing. Tanisha drinking. The fake belly on the bed. I stepped out from the shadows of the tech booth. I walked onto the grass. I looked up at the stage. Tanisha was scrambling backward, trying to cover her flat stomach with her hands. Becky was frozen, looking for an exit. Andre was standing over them, looking like Judgment Day. I raised my glass of champagne. "It is a boy," I shouted, my voice cutting through the shock. "Or wait, maybe it is a felony." The video on the 60-foot screen did not stop. It continued to play in high definition relentlessly, broadcasting the intimate betrayal to every corner of the Starlight Garden. The image of Tanisha peeling off her stomach was burned into the retinas of every guest, but the audio was what kept them paralyzed. The surround sound speakers, which were supposed to be playing upbeat party music, were now filling the humid Atlanta air with the tinny echo of Becky's voice from the recording. "Look at them out there, the screen!" Becky cackled, swirling her wine. Andre is crying over a pair of baby shoes, and Kesha is running around like a headless chicken paying for everything. The real Becky stood frozen near the stage. Her gold sequined dress, which had looked so commanding just minutes ago, now looked like a cheap costume. She was looking around wildly, searching for an ally, but finding only a sea of hostile faces. The guests were not just shocked anymore. They were offended. These were people who had brought expensive gifts, who had cleared their schedules, who had emotionally invested in this miracle pregnancy. And they were watching themselves being mocked by the very people they had come to celebrate. On the screen, the video cut to black for a split second. Tanisha let out a ragged breath, thinking it was over. She took a step forward, composing her face ready to scream about hackers or deepfakes, but the screen did not stay black. Suddenly, the display shifted. The video was replaced by a stark professional graphic. It looked like a courtroom exhibit. It was a forensic accounting spreadsheet projected 10 feet high. The header read, "Misappropriated funds, the cost of a lie." I watched from the shadows as the crowd murmured. They were business people. They understood spreadsheets. They understood the language of theft. Jamal hit the next cue. A timeline appeared. It showed dates, amounts, and vendors. January 15th, $5,000. Vendor LH Wellness Group. Authorized user Becky. A picture popped up next to the line item. It wasn't a medical bill. It was a photo from Becky's own Instagram posted 2 days after the charge. In the photo, she was holding a vintage Chanel flat bag, captioning it, #blessed self-care. The crowd gasped. A woman in the front row, who I recognized as one of Andre's investors, turned to look at Becky with pure venom. February 3rd, $2,000, cash transfer. Recipient Dante. Note: emergency car repair. Another photo appeared. It was Dante checking in at a VIP club in Miami, holding a bottle of Grey Goose with a sparkler attached to it. The timestamp matched the transfer. The screen cycled through the evidence like a metronome of guilt. Every loan I had given, every medical bill I had covered, every emergency fund I had drained was listed there side by side with the proof of where the money actually went. Total misappropriated funds: $75,000. Dante was trying to hide behind a waiter. He looked like he wanted to dissolve into the landscaping. My mother was staring at the screen, her hand covering her mouth, her eyes wide with a mixture of horror and denial. She was seeing the receipts. She was seeing the mathematical proof that her son and her daughter-in-law were thieves. But we weren't done. Jamal hit the next cue. The screen went black again. And then a waveform appeared, just a simple audio line oscillating in the silence. The voice that boomed through the speakers was crystal clear. It was Becky. It was a recording from a phone call she had made to Tanisha 3 weeks ago. A call Jamal had intercepted from the cloud backup. "I don't know why you are worried about Andre finding out. The recorded?" Becky said, her voice dripping with condescension. "He is not going to look at the statements. You know how they are. These black men get a little money, and they think they are kings, but they don't read the fine print. They are so easy to trick. You just cry a little talk about your legacy, and he opens the checkbook. It is pathetic, really." The air in the garden changed instantly. It went from shock to a dangerous, simmering rage. This wasn't just fraud anymore. This was something deeper. This was hate. Andre was standing on the stage, his back to the screen, but he heard every word. He looked at Becky. His face was a mask of stone. The audio continued, and Kesha, Becky's voice, laughed. "Please. She thinks she is one of us because she went to a good school, but she is just another angry black woman trying to buy acceptance. She will do whatever we tell her to do because she is desperate not to look like the stereotype. "We own them, Tanisha. We own this whole family." The crowd erupted. It was a low roar at first, but it built quickly. People were shouting. Someone threw a champagne glass and it shattered on the pavement near Becky's feet. Becky was backing away, shaking her head, mouthing, "It's not true, it's not true," but the audio was undeniable. Her racism, her contempt, her true face was projected for everyone to see. She had insulted the host, she had insulted the guests, and she had insulted the man who was paying her bills. Tanisha saw the crowd turning. She saw the tide rising against them. She knew she had lost the narrative. She knew she couldn't talk her way out of this. Panic set in. Primal animalistic panic. She let out a shriek that tore through the noise. "Stop it," she screamed. "Stop it right now." She lunged. She didn't run for the exit. She ran for the source. She ran toward the back of the stage, toward the tech booth where she knew the cables were. She wanted to kill the feed. She wanted to silence the truth. She moved fast for a woman who was supposed to be carrying twins. She sprinted across the stage, her royal blue gown billowing behind her. "I am going to kill you, Kesha!" she screamed. Her face contorted into a mask of pure hatred. "I will kill you." She reached the edge of the stage where the main power trunk line ran down to the generator. She reached out her hands like claws ready to rip the cords from the sockets. But Andre was there. He didn't hit her. He didn't shove her. He simply stepped into her path. He was a big man, a former linebacker, and he stood like a wall of granite. Tanisha tried to swerve, but she was moving too fast and her heels were too high. Andre shifted his weight. He extended his leg just an inch. It was subtle. It was almost imperceptible. But it was enough. Tanisha's foot caught on his ankle. She pitched forward, her arms flailed, trying to find purchase on the air. She hit the deck of the stage hard. It was a sickening thud, the sound of bone and flesh meeting wood. She slid across the smooth surface of the stage, propelled by her own momentum. And then it happened. The laws of physics demanded a payment. The impact of the fall snapped the heavy industrial straps of the silicone prosthetic. The deluxe model, the one with the realistic weight, broke free from its harness. Tanisha scrambled, trying to get up, but as she pushed herself off the floor, the belly didn't come with her. It slid out from under her dress. It happened in slow motion. The massive flesh-colored mound detached from her body. It rolled across the stage like a loose tire. It wobbled. It bounced once near the edge of the platform. And then it fell. It tumbled off the stage and landed with a wet, heavy slap on the grass, directly at the feet of my mother. My mother looked down. She was wearing her Sunday best, her church hat perched perfectly on her head, and there at the toes of her sensible heels lay the twins. It was just a lump of rubber, a 15-pound ball of silicone painted to look like skin. My mother stared at it. She looked up at Tanisha, who was now kneeling on the stage, her real stomach flat and heaving with exertion, her dress bunched up around her waist. Tanisha looked down at my mother. Their eyes met. There was no denying it now. There was no medical explanation. There was no spin. The lie was literally lying in the dirt. The crowd went silent again, but this silence was different. It was the silence of judgment. It was the silence of 100 people realizing they had been played for fools. Becky was sobbing now, huddled against a decorative pillar, trying to hide from the glares of the guests. Dante was nowhere to be seen, likely having slipped away the moment the credit card statements appeared on the screen. Tanisha tried to cover herself. She pulled her dress down. She tried to stand up to muster some shred of dignity. It is a medical device," she stammered, her voice thin and hysterical. I have a condition. The doctor said I needed support." She looked at Andre, begging him to believe her one last time. "Andre, baby. Please. You know I have back problems." Andre looked at her. He looked at the empty space where her pregnancy used to be. He looked at the screen where the spreadsheet of her theft was still glowing bright in the twilight. He reached into his tuxedo jacket. He pulled out a white envelope. He walked over to where she was kneeling. He didn't offer her a hand up. He dropped the envelope onto the stage in front of her, It landed with a soft tap. My lawyer drafted these this morning, Andre said, his voice amplified by the microphone he was still holding. It is a petition for divorce based on fraud and a restraining order. You have 24 hours to vacate my house. Tanisha stared at the papers. She didn't touch them. But the babies, she whispered. There are no babies, Tanisha, Andre said, cold and final. There never were. He turned his back on her. He walked to the edge of the stage and looked down at my mother. I am sorry, Ms. Williams, he said. I know you wanted grandchildren, but you raised a thief. And you enabled a monster. My mother flinched. She looked from Andre to Tanisha to the rubber belly at her feet. For the first time in her life, she looked truly old. She looked defeated. And then from the front gates of the estate came a sound that cut through the tension like a siren, because it was a siren. Blue and red lights flashed against the canopy of the oak trees, casting long, dancing shadows across the lawn. The wail of the sirens grew louder, approaching up the long driveway. Tanisha's head snapped up. Her eyes went wide with a new kind of terror. This wasn't social embarrassment anymore. This was real. She scrambled to her feet. She looked for an exit, but there was nowhere to go. The garden was enclosed by high walls, and the only way out was the main gate where the police cruisers were currently pulling in. I stepped out of the tech booth. Jamal was right behind me. He handed me a microphone. I walked onto the grass. The crowd parted for me. They looked at me with awe, with fear, with respect. I wasn't the doormat anymore. I wasn't the ATM. I walked until I was standing right in front of the stage, looking up at the woman who had been my best friend since kindergarten. I raised the microphone to my lips. Please do not panic, everyone. I said, my voice smooth and calm, echoing through the garden. Tanisha froze like a deer in headlights. I pointed toward the flashing lights at the gate. I promised you a reveal, Tanisha, I said. I promised you a show you would never forget. 2 uniformed officers and 2 detectives in suits were walking briskly across the lawn. One of the detectives was holding a pair of handcuffs. So everyone, please remain calm, I continued. Grab a drink, find a seat, because the gender reveal is over. I looked Tanisha dead in the eye. But the main entertainment is just getting started. The uniformed officers moved across the manicured lawn with a heavy, synchronized purpose that silenced the whispers of the crowd. The flashing blue and red lights from the cruisers parked at the gate washed over the garden, turning the elegant white flowers into strobe-lit warning signs. It was a scene from a crime drama unfolding in the middle of Buckhead's most exclusive zip code. I stood near the tech booth, my hand resting lightly on the cool metal of the soundboard. I watched as the lead detective, a tall woman with a badge hanging from her belt, stepped onto the stage. She towered over Tanisha, who was still huddled on the floorboards next to the rubber mound that used to be her pregnancy. Tanisha Williams, the detective said, her voice projecting clearly, even without a microphone in the sudden hush of the garden. You are under arrest for theft by deception, grand larceny, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Tanisha looked up, her makeup streaked with tears and sweat. For the first time in her life, she looked small. She looked like a child caught holding the match that started the forest fire. No, she whimpered, scrambling backward until her back hit the legs of the velvet throne she had demanded I rent. You cannot arrest me. I am the victim here. She did this to me. She set me up. She pointed a shaking finger at me, but the detective did not even look in my direction. She reached for Tanisha's wrist. Stand up, Ms. Williams, the detective ordered. Tanisha tried to fight. She flailed her arms, screaming about her rights, screaming about her condition, forgetting entirely that her condition was currently gathering grass stains a few feet away. The detective was efficient. In one smooth motion, she pulled Tanisha to her feet and spun her around. The sound of the handcuffs ratcheting shut was distinct. Click, click. It was the sound of a steel door slamming on a future she had tried to steal. I am pregnant, Tanisha screamed, her voice cracking. You are hurting the babies. The detective looked down at the silicone prosthetic on the stage, then back at Tanisha with a look of absolute withering pity. We will have the jail medical staff evaluate you, ma'am, the detective said dryly. But considering your twins are currently on the floor, I think you will be cleared for booking. While Tanisha was being led down the stairs, stumbling in her royal blue gown, the other officers were moving through the crowd. They were not just here for the mastermind.
They were here for the accomplices.
Dante saw them coming. My brother, the man who had strutted into this party acting like he owned the block, suddenly looked like a cornered rat. He tried to blend into a group of Andre's investors, ducking his head and edging toward the service exit near the catering tent. He didn't make it 5 steps. 2 officers cut off his path. Dante froze, his hands held up in a gesture of surrender that looked pathetic on a man wearing a linen suit he had bought with stolen credit. Dante Johnson, one of the officers said, "We have a warrant for your arrest for identity theft, credit card fraud, and grand larceny." Dante's eyes went wide. He looked around wildly, searching for a savior. His eyes landed on our mother, who was standing near the front, frozen in shock. "Ma," he screamed, his voice high and terrified. "Ma, help me. They are hurting me. Tell them who we are. Tell them to stop." But there was nothing she could do.
The officers grabbed his arms, pulling them behind his back. Dante struggled, kicking out his expensive loafers, scuffing the grass. "It wasn't me," he shouted, trying to trade loyalty for freedom. "It was Becky. It was her idea. She took the cards. She bought the bags. I just did what she told me." Across the lawn, Becky let out a screech of indignation. She had been trying to slink away behind a trellis of climbing roses, but the commotion drew every eye to her shimmering gold sequined dress. "You liar!" she yelled, pointing at her husband. "You dragged me into this. You said your sister owed us." An officer stepped in front of her, blocking her escape. "Rebecca Johnson," he said, "you are also under arrest. Conspiracy to commit fraud and multiple counts of credit card theft." Becky recoiled as if the officer was made of filth. She drew herself up to her full height, channeling every ounce of entitlement she had stored in her body. "Do not touch me," she hissed. "Do you know who I am? You cannot arrest me. I am a respectable woman. This is a mistake. That woman over there," she pointed a trembling finger at me. "That woman is the criminal. Kesha set me up. She gave me those cards. She told me to use them." The officer reached for her arm. Becky slapped his hand away. "Get your hands off me," she shrieked. Her voice reached a pitch that made the guests wince. "I am a white woman. You cannot do this to me. I am the victim of a hate crime. This is reverse racism. That black witch set me up because she is jealous of me." The gasps from the crowd were audible. Phones that had been lowered were raised again instantly. 100 cameras pointed at Becky, capturing her meltdown in 4K resolution. She was digging her own grave, with every word broadcasting her bigotry to the entire city of Atlanta. She struggled as they cuffed her gold sequins shedding like scales. "Help me!" she screamed at the crowd. "Why is nobody helping me? You are all watching an innocent woman be attacked." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The guests, the elite of the city, watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. They knew that association with Becky at this moment was social suicide. She was toxic. She was radioactive. As they dragged her past the buffet table, she kicked over a tray of champagne flutes. The glass shattered. The sound punctuated her downfall. I watched Dante being led away, sobbing like a child. I watched Becky being dragged, kicking and screaming, spewing slurs and excuses. And then I looked at my mother. She was standing alone in the center of the chaos. Her hat was crooked. Her hands were clutching her chest. She watched her golden boy, her Dante, being shoved into the back of a police cruiser. She watched her perfect daughter-in-law being exposed as a racist fraud. She looked at me. Her eyes were wide, filled with a panic I had never seen before. She took a step toward me, her mouth opening to speak, to beg, to demand I fix this as I always had. But she never got the words out. Her eyes rolled back in her head. Her knees buckled. She collapsed onto the grass in a heap of floral silk and denial. It might have been real. It might have been a performance to garner sympathy, to distract from the shame of her son in handcuffs. I didn't move to find out. I didn't rush to her side. I watched as 2 paramedics who had been standing by on standby moved in to check her vitals.
She was breathing. She was fine. She was just escaping the only way she knew how, avoiding the reality she had helped create. Andre was still standing on the stage. He had watched the arrests with a stone face, a statue of righteous judgment. Now, as the police began to clear the scene, he moved. He walked down the steps of the stage. He walked past my fainting mother without a glance. He walked straight to the police cruiser where Tanisha was being held. The back door was open and Tanisha was sitting sideways, her legs dangling out, weeping into her hands. When she saw Andre, she stopped crying. A flicker of hope lit up her eyes. She thought he was coming to save her. She thought she could still manipulate him. "Andre, baby," she whispered, reaching out with her cuffed hands. "Please, tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them we can fix this. I love you, Andre. I did it for us." Andre stopped 2 feet away from her. He reached into his tuxedo jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. It was the divorce petition. He had carried it next to his heart all night, waiting for this moment. He didn't hand it to her. He tossed it onto her lap. "My lawyer will meet you at the precinct," Andre said. His voice was low, but it carried the weight of a final verdict. "He is not there to bail you out, Tanisha. He is there to serve you." Tanisha stared at the papers. "Andre, please," she begged. "I have nothing. If you leave me, I have nothing." "You have exactly what you brought into this marriage," Andre said. "Lies and debt. The house is in my name. The accounts are frozen. The cars are leased. You are leaving my life the same way you entered it, empty." He leaned in closer, his face inches from hers. "And Tanisha," he said, "if you ever say my name again, if you ever try to contact me or my family, I will spend every dollar I have ensuring you stay in that cell until you are old and gray. Do you understand me?" Tanisha shrank back into the seat, the reality finally piercing her delusion. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face again. Andre straightened up. He signaled to the officer, who slammed the car door shut, sealing Tanisha inside her new reality. The sirens wailed again, as the convoy of police cars began to move. One by one, they rolled down the long driveway, carrying away the toxic waste of my life. Tanisha, Dante, Becky. They were gone. The garden was quiet now, save for the murmurs of the guests and the rustle of the wind in the trees. The party was over, but nobody was leaving. They were too stunned, too energized by the drama to go home. I walked over to the bar. The bartender, a young man with wide eyes, looked at me with something approaching reverence. "Can I get you something, ma'am?" he asked, his voice respectful. I looked at the selection of premium wines, the bottles I had paid for. I pointed to a vintage Cabernet. "Pour me a glass," I said. "A large one." He poured the wine, the dark red liquid swirling in the crystal glass. I took it and walked away from the bar, moving toward the edge of the lawn where the shadows were deepest. I stood there alone, watching the scene. The paramedics were helping my mother onto a stretcher. She was awake now, weeping loudly, calling out for Dante, making sure everyone knew she was the victim of a tragedy. Andre was shaking hands with the detectives, thanking them, signing statements. Jamal came up beside me. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, a warm, solid presence at my back. He wrapped his arm around my waist and pulled me close. I took a sip of the wine. It was rich and complex with notes of dark fruit and oak. It tasted expensive. It tasted like victory. I looked at the empty stage where the silicone belly still lay on the floor, a discarded prop in a play that had closed early. I looked at the screen, which was now black, the evidence of their crimes powered down. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel sad. I felt a profound quiet settle over my soul. The noise was gone. The demands were gone. The leeches were gone. I turned to Jamal and raised my glass in a silent toast. "To the retirement plan," I whispered. He smiled and kissed my temple. "To new beginnings," he replied. I took another sip and watched the last of the police lights fade into the distance. I didn't say a word to my mother as they wheeled her past me. I didn't look at her. I didn't acknowledge her cries. My silence was the loudest thing in the garden. It was the final period at the end of a very long sentence. And as I turned my back on the chaos and looked toward the future, I knew one thing for certain. I was finally free. 6 months later, the silence in my house was different. It was not the heavy, suffocating silence of secrets or the tense silence of plotting a takedown. It was the silence of peace. It was the sound of sunlight hitting the floorboards and the coffee maker gurgling in the kitchen. It was the sound of a life that had been scrubbed clean of toxins. I sat on my back porch, watching the autumn leaves drift into the pool. The air was crisp in Atlanta, finally breaking the humidity that had hung over the city like a shroud on the night of the gender reveal. That night felt like a fever dream, now a vivid explosion of color and noise that had rearranged the geography of my entire world. The legal system moves slowly, but when you have forensic evidence bound in leather folders, it tends to move a little faster. Tanisha's sentencing had been last week. I did not go to the courthouse. I did not need to see her in an orange jumpsuit to know that justice had been served. Andre went, though. He told me she cried when the judge read the verdict. 5 years. 5 years in a federal facility for wire fraud, grand larceny, and conspiracy. The judge had been particularly unimpressed by her attempt to fake a medical emergency during the arraignment. Apparently, fainting spells do not work as well when the court has video evidence of you doing burpees in your bedroom while claiming to be bedridden. 5 years. She wanted a life of luxury where she did not have to work. In a twisted way, she got it. 3 meals a day, a roof over her head, and a strict schedule, but the luxury was gone. The influence was gone. The followers had unfollowed. Tanisha Williams, the Queen of Buckhead, was now just inmate number 84620. Becky's downfall had been much louder and far more public. The internet does not forgive, and it certainly does not forget. The video of her screaming racial slurs at the police officers had gone viral within hours of the party. It was trended globally. By Monday morning, her employer, a boutique PR firm, had issued a public statement, firing her effective immediately to distance themselves from the fallout. But the social court was harsher than the criminal one. Becky was doxxed. Her social media was flooded with comments. She tried to rebrand herself as a victim of cancel culture, but nobody was buying tickets to that show. Without Dante's income, which had always been a mirage anyway, and without my credit cards to prop up their lifestyle, the house of cards collapsed. The bank foreclosed on their McMansion in the suburbs. The leasing company repossessed the furniture. Last I heard, Becky was living in her parents' basement in rural Georgia. She had filed for bankruptcy. She had to sell her collection of handbags, the ones she bought with my money, just to pay her legal fees. The woman who had sneered at my silk dress was now shopping at the discount bin, and I hoped she found some sturdy clothes there. She was going to need them. Dante got off lighter, but only slightly, because he cooperated and testified against Tanisha and Becky, painting himself as the hapless husband dragged into a scheme he did not understand. He avoided prison time. Instead, he got 3 years of probation and 500 hours of community service. I saw him once a few weeks ago. I was driving down the interstate on my way to a client meeting, and I saw a road crew in orange vests picking up trash on the median. There he was. My brother. The man who refused to wear anything but Italian loafers was spearing discarded fast food wrappers with a stick. He looked tired. He looked old. He looked like a man who had finally learned that the world does not owe him a living. He is living in a motel, now working minimum wage jobs, because his background check is flagged with fraud. He is finally learning the value of $1 the hard way. And then there is my mother. Her punishment is the quietest and the most enduring. She is not in jail, she is not bankrupt, she is simply alone. The bridge club stopped inviting her after the news broke. The church ladies stopped saving her a seat. The social standing she had prized above her own children evaporated the moment the truth came out. She lives in her pristine house, surrounded by her expensive things, with no one to show them to. She calls me. Every day at 6 p.m. she calls. I don't know what she wants to say. Maybe she wants to apologize. Maybe she wants to ask for money. Maybe she just wants to hear a voice that does not sound like her own echoing in an empty room. I never answer. I blocked her number months ago, but I can see the attempts in my call log. It is a daily reminder that she made her choice. She chose the lie. She chose the image. And now she has to live inside the picture frame she built, all by herself. I took a sip of my tea and looked at the alert on my phone. A deposit notification. 2 days ago, a check had cleared. $100,000. It was from Andre. He had sold the house in Buckhead. He said he could not live there anymore, not with the ghosts of the fake nursery and the memories of the deception. He had downsized to a condo in the city, focused on rebuilding his business and his life. When he sent the money, he included a note. Kesha, this is the $50,000 they stole from you plus interest, plus a stupidity tax on me for believing them. Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for waking me up. I did not keep the money. Jamal and I did not need it. We had our careers, we had our integrity, and we had each other. That money was tainted. It was blood money from a wound that had finally healed. So we gave it away.
We started the Truth in Numbers Scholarship Fund. It is a program designed to help underprivileged girls from our old neighborhood go to college for finance and accounting. We wanted to give them the tools to see the truth in the numbers, just like I did. We wanted to empower a generation of women who would never be marks, who would never be victims, who would know exactly where every penny went. I smiled, thinking about the first recipient, a bright-eyed girl named Maya, who wanted to be an auditor. She reminded me of myself at that age, hungry and sharp, and ready to take on the world. That money was going to do more good in her hands than it ever did in Tanisha's. The sliding glass door opened, and Jamal walked out onto the porch. He was holding 2 mugs of coffee, and his face was lit up with a smile that made my heart skip a beat. He sat down next to me and handed me a mug. "You look happy," he said. "I am happy," I replied. "It is finally over, Jamal. The dust has settled, the bad guys lost. The good guys won. It feels like the end of a movie." "It is not the end," he said, leaning in to kiss my forehead. "It is the sequel." He pulled his phone out of his pocket. By the way, he said, his voice casual, but his eyes dancing. "Dr. Patel called while you were outside. She said she tried your cell, but it was on silent." I froze. My teacup clattered onto the saucer. Dr. Patel was my fertility specialist. We had started seeing her again 2 months ago, quietly, privately, without telling a soul. After the stress of the investigation, after the toxicity of my family was purged, I felt ready to try again. But I was terrified. I had been disappointed so many times. "What did she say?" I whispered. Jamal's grin got wider. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of paper he had printed. It was a lab report. "She said your HCG levels are through the roof," Jamal said. "She said everything looks perfect. Kesha, you are pregnant." I stared at him. The world stopped spinning. The birds stopped singing. All I could hear was the rushing of my own blood. "Pregnant?" I asked. For real," he said. "No silicone, no Velcro, no lies. Just us." I burst into tears. But they weren't the tears of grief I had shed in the car that day outside the party. They weren't the tears of rage I had cried in the hospital. They were tears of pure, unadulterated joy. I put my hand on my stomach. It was flat still. There was no bump yet. But under my palm, I could feel the warmth of my own skin. I could feel the life that was starting to bloom there, protected by love, protected by truth. Jamal wrapped his arms around me, and we sat there on the porch crying and laughing together. I thought about Tanisha in her cell. I thought about the fake belly rolling on the grass. I thought about the desperate need for attention that had driven her to destroy everything. And then I thought about this baby, this real tiny secret baby, We are not going to do a reveal, are we?
I asked, wiping my eyes. Jamal laughed. No, no parties, no blue smoke, no social media. Good, I said. Let's just keep it for us. Let's just be a family. Because that was the final lesson. That was the truth I had learned in the fire. Family is not about blood. Blood is just biology. Blood is Dante stealing my identity. Blood is my mother watching me drown and asking why I got wet. Family is the people who stand by you when the house is burning down. Family is the husband who drives you to the crime scene and helps you collect the evidence. Family is the friend who believes you when the world calls you crazy. Family are the people who protect you in the storm, not the ones who create the rain. I looked out at the skyline of Atlanta, the city where I had lost so much and gained so much more. We are going to be okay, I said. Jamal kissed my hand. We are better than okay, Kesha. We are free.
And as I sat there with my husband and our secret growing inside me, I knew he was right. The ledger was balanced. The debts were paid. And for the first time in my life, the future didn't look like a transaction. It looked like a gift. The most painful lesson wasn't about the money. It was realizing that blind loyalty is a dangerous weakness. I learned that family isn't defined by DNA, but by mutual respect and protection. Tanisha and my relatives saw my kindness as a resource to exploit, viewing my generosity as gullibility. But they underestimated the strength of a woman pushed too far. True peace only comes from cutting off toxic roots, no matter how deep they go. I replaced a circle of leeches with a circle of protectors, proving that while we can't choose our bloodline, we absolutely have the power to choose our future. Looking back now, the most painful part of this story wasn't the money I lost or the public humiliation. It was realizing how long I ignored my own instincts. I confused loyalty with obligation. I told myself that staying silent was kindness, that giving more would somehow earn respect. It didn't. If I could give you one piece of advice, it would be this: don't become the version of yourself who keeps paying just to keep the peace. Peace bought with self-betrayal is never real peace. This experience taught me that love without boundaries becomes a weapon in the wrong hands. Trust should never require you to abandon your dignity. And family, real family, is not defined by blood or history, but by who protects you when the truth comes out. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you once trusted? Share your experience in the comments. If you believe stories like this can help others see the warning signs sooner, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. It truly helps more than you know. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. And a gentle reminder, the next story includes some fictional elements created for educational and reflective purposes. If this type of content isn't right for you, please feel free to exit and choose something that better suits your space today.